Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, my twin sister is demanding to come with me to Japan. So to give some context, we're all from Ireland, but my boyfriend, 26, male, is half Japanese. His dad and his dad's family are from Japan, and he spent his first 12 years there, but his mom and her family are from Ireland. My boyfriend and his family go yearly to Japan, and before Christmas, they asked if I, 23, female, would like to go in March and April, which will be our 1-year anniversary. I, of course, said yes. I've never left the country before, and I'd like to meet the rest of his family. So it was a nice early Christmas present. My twin sister, 23, female, and her boyfriend, 28, male, found out, and they thought they were getting invited too, along with their 2 kids, who are 5 and 4. And when I told them it wasn't going to happen, they got really angry with me. It wasn't up to me to invite anyone. And even if it was, I still wouldn't invite them to the first time I'm meeting the rest of my boyfriend's family. My sister's boyfriend is a huge weeb, for lack of a better term, obsessed with one small part of Japanese culture. And when he first met my boyfriend, he said, "I can speak Japanese," to which he was quickly embarrassed. But anyway, they've been trying to guilt trip me and my boyfriend, saying how they'd do the same for me, even though they didn't when they went on holiday, which I'm not mad about. Now that hasn't been working, so recently they've been talking bad about me and my boyfriend to my family. My whole family is taking their side, saying I should just invite them, but no one seems to understand that it's not even up to me. I mean, they're more than welcome to buy their own tickets and pay for their own hotel, but no one in my family seems to understand that my boyfriend only gets to see this part of the family once a year. It's my first time meeting that part of the family, and it's our 1-year anniversary. They just think I have some duty to my twin sister and my niece and nephew. I've really been feeling bad about it, and my boyfriend has been trying to comfort me. I want an outside opinion. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Nobody invited them, so I can't see how they can build up this sense of entitlement required to impose themselves not on you, but on your fiance's family. If you were my prospective daughter-in-law and I extended an invitation to you for a family trip, I would be extremely salty if you brought +4 along. Scratch that. I would rescind the invitation. Not the jerk. It's so weird that they would just invite themselves. Just tell them they're welcome to book a trip at the same time. They can organize their own flights and accommodations. And if you have any free time, you'll try to catch up with them. Then don't. Afterwards, you can explain again that you were meeting your boyfriend's family and you were just too busy. Or tell them to stop being absolutely ridiculous and to live their own lives, not yours. My fiance proposed to me, but it turns out the ring is fake. So my fiance, Mark, 30 male, and I have been together for 2 years now. 2 months ago, he asked me to marry him, and he gave me a beautiful Cartier engagement ring. I was really excited, and of course I said yes. It was a beautiful ring, and I was excited to be marrying the man I love. The other day, Mark and I worked together. I overheard 2 coworkers talking about Mark. Someone mentioned that Mark makes so much money, but he didn't even give his girlfriend a real ring. The person asked for clarification, and it turns out that Mark bought a Cartier box off of eBay, then put a cubic zirconia ring into the box. I didn't want to believe it. Then I took my ring to a jeweler to get it checked. My ring is essentially worthless. It isn't anywhere near a diamond. Mark is on business right now. I'm so upset I haven't answered any of his calls or texts. I don't know what to say. Am I wrong for being this upset? I'm honestly starting to think this is a deal breaker. He's so cheap and stingy with his money, but at least I thought he'd buy me a good ring when I know he can afford it. What should I do? I'd tell him, "Mark, let's go get this ring appraised for insurance purposes. It's so beautiful, I want to make sure it's protected." Then watch as his world burns around him. Or so says my significant other after I read him this post. Hold on, he's bragging about tricking you to people at work? Lord have mercy, is this fool stupid? He must be, because anyone that works in an office knows that this crap spreads like a wildfire. Not only is he stupid, he's a scammer with zero respect for your intelligence. This ain't love. Is he seriously 30 years old? Ditch this loser. He ain't worth it. When he asks you why, tell him you want someone that takes you seriously, not a clown. Update. Long story short, I finally answered Mark's calls and texts, and I kept it as calm as I could. I told him I wanted to take an insurance policy out on the ring because it was very valuable, and I was taking it to an appraiser. Mark immediately shut up and told me that I shouldn't do that until he got back, that he already had a warranty in place at the jeweler, that I shouldn't make big decisions without him. After he stopped spouting off reasons, I told him it was too late. I already took the ring to a jeweler, and I knew that not only was it a worthless piece of glass, but also silver-plated. The jerk stammered, and the only intelligent thing that came out of his mouth was, "You took it to a real jeweler?" Huge fight over finances, selfishness, and lying ensued. He accused me of being a gold digger, and I refuted this by asking him to try and remember the last time I ever made him pay for anything or buy me anything. He had no answer. I said I wanted no part of something based on a lie, and I hung up. Switched the Facebook status from engaged to single. Oh, and I changed the locks in our apartment and gave our dog to my sister to make sure he doesn't try to keep him. I paid for the dog and all of his shots. He'll have a fun time trying to get in when he comes back from his travel. Edit. I realize that I need to give this idiot a written letter that says he has 30 days to vacate. I'm giving him the letter the second he walks in. I'll give him a spare key if he insists on staying. Darn. On one hand, it seems silly to leave someone over a ring, but on the other hand, this is about so much more than the ring. It's about him manipulating and lying to you. That's unacceptable. I'm glad you found a solution that you're comfortable with. OP. Exactly. The ring just brought all the other issues to a head. I'm too angry right now to be sad, but there's no worse feeling when a man that claims to love you takes joy in manipulating you and bragging about what he did to people that knows us both personally and in a professional place. I did love him, very much so, but there comes a point where enough is enough, especially when it comes to something he knew I took very seriously. I can't be disrespected anymore. Thus, I'm putting my foot down and making sure my decision sticks. Why did he brag about his scam to coworkers when they both work at the same place? He could have gotten away with it, so long as he hadn't told anyone. The audacity of some people. That guy is an idiot. She would have learned after the silver wore off. Silver is surprisingly soft, and it would dent easily. I've had it happen with silver rings, and if it's that cheap, I bet the plating isn't even very good, like those Chinese eBay ones. It's not gold digging to want a ring that will actually last you the rest of your life. They both dodged bullets here. A lie here and there, a little digging for gold here and there. Edit. Silver is just as good. Tungsten carbide rings will last forever. There are other options that are cheaper and still look good. OP was expecting a big expensive ring and was let down when it wasn't. Karen let her brat attack me in the thrift store, and now I'm disabled. It's another night where the pain won't let me sleep. Might as well get this off my chest while I wait for the painkillers to start working. I, 22 female, used to work at a thrift store close to my house from December of last year until April. I used to go thrifting there with my mother, and I applied out of nostalgia. The work was fast-paced, but I liked it. I would have liked it more if the clothes were cleaner, if the pay was minimum wage, and, if there were no kids that would attack you. We had many regulars who, with time, I became acquainted with, mostly because I was the only Spanish-speaking worker on the sales floor. One of them was a mother of 3 whose kids always caused trouble, running around the store, breaking stuff, and no matter how many times I told the mother to keep her kids in line, she'd only scold them for a second, then let them cause havoc around the store again. I never would have guessed that one of her kids would actually attack me. This wasn't the first time that he did it, but it was the first time where it genuinely hurt. I don't know what that kid's head was made of, but when he headbutted me full force on the hip while attending his mother, I curled up and cried from the pain. I had to prevent him from doing it to me again while his mother was still looking at the red dress that I had handed to her. My only guess to why the kid attacked me was because I had the red dress in my hands, and the kid was playing pretend to be a bull. He was doing that foot thing you see bulls do in bullfighting. My managers didn't call an ambulance for me or refer me to a work accident doctor like they should have. I had to limp to my car and drive myself to my family doctor, where I waited 2 hours to be seen. I was given an X-ray, ultrasound, MRI, and painkillers. They detected an ovarian cyst, most likely from the hit. Doctors thought that was the source of my pain, but it healed since. Until this day, 6 months after the work accident, I'm still in pain and I limp. I'm currently in a workers' comp case with the thrift store's insurance, only because the mother fled when my coworkers confronted her and never came back. My lawyer said that when the case is over, I'm most likely going to be on some sort of disability pension paid by the thrift store's insurance company until, or if, I make a full recovery. It's been 6 months with no signs of getting better. I can't walk long distances, I can't sit down for long, I can't crouch, I can't jump, I can't run, and I can't lay on my left side anymore. The pain won't let me sleep. I constantly feel something whooshing around my left hip joint, and I have nightmares about that day. What I'm trying to say is, I really miss the mobility and life I used to have. My life is just constant pain now, and it's making me depressed. So, to all the parents who might see this, please, for goodness sake, keep your kids under control. Am I the jerk for not wanting to remove a tattoo dedicated to my deceased boyfriend? I, 28 female, had a boyfriend, Lachlan, who suddenly and unexpectedly passed 7 years ago, after 4 years together and over 2 years of living together. I was, of course, a complete mess after he passed. As a way to memorialize him, I got a tattoo of his name over my heart. I now have a boyfriend, 27 male, who I've been with for a year and a half. He's known since we started dating that I had a boyfriend who passed, and about the tattoo. Now that we've been together for a while and we're starting to talk about our future together, he's asked me to remove the tattoo and is offering to pay for the removal. His view is that it's unfair to him that I have a previous boyfriend's name tattooed on myself, especially in such a visible place, and asserts that no man would be comfortable with that. I haven't been in any relationships this long or this serious since Lachlan passed, so I genuinely don't know if that's true. He doesn't like that he always has to see it, and that people can see another man's name on my body when I wear singlet tops or swimmers. He thinks my reluctance to remove the tattoo is an indication that I'm hung up on another man, and if I'm not 100% over Lachlan, I can't be 100% committed to my relationship with him. My view is that I can hold space in my heart for my love and grief for Lachlan and my love for my boyfriend and intention to have a future with him. Lachlan will always be a huge part of my life, and his passing will always be a source of grief for me. The tattoo is my way of honoring the impact he had on me. I don't believe any of that detracts from my relationship with my boyfriend now. I think it's silly to be jealous of a deceased person. I feel that his concern about what others might think is a little petty, but I offered to add 1995 to 2016 underneath it so that it would be clear to others it's a memorial tattoo. He didn't accept that as a reasonable compromise. My boyfriend thinks my judgment on this might be skewed because I'm still grieving, so I want to hear impartial opinions. Am I wrong to keep a tattoo dedicated to another man over my heart while I'm in a relationship with someone else? Not the jerk. I personally find it unacceptable to make ultimatums about things like this, and the controlling behavior described in your post is not okay. If I understand correctly, he waited until you were invested in the relationship to make this demand, because he also knows it's an extreme thing to ask of someone. He's trying to convince you that no one else will ever be attracted to or understanding of you, so that you'll accept him stepping all over the things that are important to you. The fact that he's unwilling to even let you add years to make it a more obvious memorial is also very telling. There's a lot of things I want to unpack about this, but I'll leave you with one question that I feel is very important. If you do go ahead and get this memorial removed for his sake, and your relationship with him doesn't last for other reasons, how will you feel then? You'll have to live with that empty space on your chest forever, knowing you did it for someone who doesn't even value you enough to prioritize your grief over himself. Edit. Claiming you're too grief-stricken 13 to 14 years later to make decisions for yourself? Trying to convince you that this isn't just a problem he has, but everyone? Every man who could ever be interested in you? Every stranger who sees you at the pool? He's trying to stack this up as him and the whole world versus you, devalue you, and make you question your own values and judgments. I fear that this is him testing the waters on what exactly he can make you do for his approval. Not the jerk. Unfortunately, I don't think you're compatible with this man. Not everyone can grasp that Lachlan isn't your ex, he's your deceased partner. You never broke up and therefore never stopped loving him. This is hard for a lot of people, and you need to find someone who will understand and support the fact that you may hold love for Lachlan for the rest of your life. You're the jerk. Sorry, but if you think you'll ever find a good man who will be okay with this, you're very wrong. Any man who will be okay with their partner having a tattoo of her ex's name is a man without self-respect or values. But that's exactly what you want for a long-term relationship, right? You'll hook up with guys who don't respect you and just want to use you. But for marriage and financial security, you want the weakling who's obsessed with Nintendo and will agree to an open relationship when you threaten to divorce him. This is honestly a red flag on your part for him to get the heck away from you and to find someone with half a brain who will actually show him some respect. Am I the jerk for forcing the seller of our house out before her new place was ready? I, 25 female, and my husband, 25 male, moved into an apartment in October of 22, and we had been looking for a house. In January of 23, one of my mom's friends, Mary, She told my mom that she was moving into a condo about an hour away from where her house was, so that she could be closer to her mom. Neri is also mentally disabled from a work accident years ago, but is able to live alone and take care of herself. She asked if we wanted to take a look at the house, and we loved it and said we were interested in moving forward. We agreed on no realtors and to use real estate lawyers. We were also getting a discounted price. At this point, she mentioned that her condo was still under construction with a projected finish date of June. That was okay with us, and we began the process in April. As with most construction projects, there were delays, so we were patient with her as our original time frame of going to settlement and moving in June or July passed us by. I had talked to her in August, asking if my husband and I moving in October 1st works for the timing of her condo being finished. She said that it would, and I told her that was great and that I would let my landlord know that we would be breaking our lease. I also informed our real estate lawyer and asked him to set the settlement date accordingly. Less than a week later, I received an angry email from my lawyer stating that he was quitting because Mary and I had been making plans behind his back that he was not aware of. Apparently, she had told her lawyer that we agreed to settle October 25th, which was not what we had discussed. I emailed him back and resolved the issue, but we were not to contact the owner without him. This is where I feel like I might be the jerk. My husband and I, along with our lawyer, had an incredibly uncomfortable conversation with her about how she needed to be out no later than October 13th because our lease was up on the 15th. She was crying and saying that she had no one to help her move out and that her condo was not complete because they hadn't installed safety bars for the shower yet. I explained that we would not have a place to live if she was not out and that settlement was 2 weeks prior to when we asked her to move out, so she would be living in a house that no longer belongs to her. I also said she has the ability to live with her mother while the bars are getting installed. I said there are many services available that will pack and move your stuff for you. She ignored what I said and continued to cry and actually was whimpering and calling for her mommy. I ended the call because I was so uncomfortable. She cried to my mom on the phone about this. I told my mom my side of the story, but she continues to mention that I wasn't being reasonable and should have allowed her to stay longer. I feel I was patient and accommodating throughout the process. We've been in the house for months, but my parents still don't approve of how I handled it. Was I the jerk? This could have been resolved by using realtors and doing everything by the books. Everyone sucks here for not formally making choices and then both parties getting upset at it. Clearly, Mary has many issues going on, and she probably wanted to not do things as formally to make the moving process easier and less stressful. You got a discounted price, but did not give her what she thought she would be getting out of the deal. Mary also drug her feet and was given multiple months extra time. If she is incapacitated to the point where she really can't handle this, she should have asked for help from a family member or a friend, or someone in her life could have offered to walk her through this. I don't know. I mean, your lawyer was correct. If you wanted to go through lawyers, then you should have. That said, June to October is a ton of extra time. Also, didn't Mary have her own lawyer? That person also bears some responsibility here. Whatever Mary's problems might be, the person representing her should also be handling the fact that she can't keep adjusting her move-out date indefinitely. I, female 28, moved in and immediately caused a problem with my neighbors by not letting them use my yard anymore. Last year, I purchased a property from the estate of a couple who had owned it for 50+ years. As they got older, they spent less and less time there. By the time they passed, they hadn't lived on site for almost a decade. The property is heavily wooded with lake access from the back of the lot and was in need of serious TLC. Because of the woods and the distance between the lots, I didn't expect to see much of my neighbors. But at first, I had people stopping by all the time telling me how great it was that I was cleaning up and renovating the property. Awesome. I work from home, so it was nice to see the people living reasonably around me. So all fine until the last steps, pouring a concrete pad for my van and finishing the fencing. I hadn't moved in yet, but once the extra driveway and pad were added, I parked my van. When I returned for the final move-in, there was a massive gouge down the length of it. It was as if someone had squeezed another vehicle by or dragged something else large by it. Anyway, I moved myself and my dog in, and because of the dog and the incident with the scratched van, I closed the gates. By doing so, I cut off access to the lake through my property. It appears the neighbors have been using my entryway and side yard to get down to the water for a while, as the old owners were never here to care. I started getting notes and knocks on the door about the problem I had suddenly caused. I don't mind the occasional neighborhood kid knocking on the door to cut through, but this was non-stop. Not kidding, like 3 to 4 groups a day, and they were not always terribly polite about it. I was even asked to move my van and vehicle so people could back boats down the drive. I'm now assuming that's how my van got scratched. I start by explaining I have a dog and the normal reasons for having a fence, but I've been met with pretty intense criticism that I'm changing how things have always worked around here. Last straw for me was people opening the gate on their own and then getting upset that my dog was loose in the yard. I finally acted by putting up a no trespassing sign, a sign indicating that the dog was in the yard, locks, and an intercom by my doorbell, so when people ring, I can tell them I'm working and I don't have to come down to the door 5 times. Even though the summer season has come and gone, I'm still getting a steady barrage of notes and voicemail messages telling me that access to the lake is grandfathered in, as the previous owners allowed it, and it's been going on forever. These letters and voicemails are coming from 2 houses specifically, a woman in her 50s and a couple about the same age, who claim they represent the rest of the neighbors and the homeowners association. Although when I purchased my property, there wasn't a single thing about neighborhood covenants or an actual organized homeowners association. Sometimes the letters and voicemails take on a more formal approach. Other times they're just informing me of how bad of a person I am for ruining the neighborhood. My attorney assures me this claimed easement is absolutely not a thing. But these are people I'll presumably be living nearby for a long time, and I'd prefer to be on at least neutral terms. Is there a way to deal with this that I'm missing? Wow, that's terrible and incredibly unfortunate. Have you talked to your lawyer about the harassment? Also, what's the local PD like? OP. I'm outside of the city limits by a long way, but there is a sheriff's department that handles calls if anyone actually breaks the law. I chatted with my attorney to make sure there wasn't some type of legal easement, and while he assured me there isn't and I'm not breaking any laws, apparently my neighbors aren't breaking any laws either by calling and sending letters. You are not in the wrong. I had a very similar issue with my property. We went through the same troubles and did exactly what you're doing. Folks got the hint after the end of the second swim season. They will not like you for it, but those folks do not keep up your property or pay your taxes. Never give an inch or they'll take a mile. Never say happy holidays to a Karen. This happened yesterday when I was working Christmas Eve at my retail job. I had already worked a full shift and was staying a little bit longer since someone had no-called, no-showed. I had maybe about 2 hours left before I could go home when Entitled Mom showed up in my line. This particular Entitled Mom is infamous at our store, and everyone tries to avoid her as much as possible, since she's a crusading type of mom who makes sure you know exactly what she stands for because she's going to go out of her way to tell you. And God help you if you're one hair out of line when it comes to her ideals. I guess today her cause was mental health. Anyways, she gets up to me finally, and of course she has a million different questions about various items that I just don't have the answer to. She then wants to do price matching on like 80% of her items, and the other 20% she wants to know the prices. As if that weren't bad enough, she's got her daughter with her and wants her girl to pay separately from her. I waste about 5 to 10 minutes dealing with her and her BS, with the other people in line starting to yell at me to hurry up. Finally get her and her daughter through the line without too many issues. Just when I think I'm done with her and her, I make the mistake of saying, "Happy Holidays," as I hand her bags to her. I start ringing out the next customer, and I notice she's still kinda skulking about. About halfway through me getting through the next person in line, Entitled Mom comes behind the counter and stands right next to me to have a conversation. "Hi, sorry, I don't mean to bother you, but I know you didn't mean anything by it, but you really shouldn't be saying happy holidays. There's just people with depression and other conditions that you could trigger with language like that, since they feel like they have to be happy." Me. Okay, can you please step away from my area here? I was super irritated, and my tone definitely reflected that. "You can drop the attitude, honey. You're the one out here endangering people by saying things like that. And right now, you're being very rude." Me. Okay, please step back. At this point, the customer I had been ringing up is getting angry and starts yelling at me for getting distracted, which was fair. I go back to ringing her out, with Entitled Mom deciding that she's going to step even closer, standing less than 1 inch away from me and continues to try to have my undivided attention, and I had finally had enough. Me. Stand the heck back! Things proceeded to devolve from there. Her daughter starts crying, like that obnoxiously loud kind of crying, Entitled Mom is yelling. My new customer is yelling that she's not moving through the line. The whole thing is a mess. Security eventually comes and gets Entitled Mom away from me, and a few minutes after that, my manager pulls me off the floor and someone else takes my place at the register. To make a long story short, my manager wants me to apologize to Entitled Mom. I told him I wouldn't, and he ended up sending me home about an hour early as a result. I don't know if I'm fired or not, but so far I'm still on the schedule for tomorrow, so hopefully the worst I have waiting for me when I come in is a stern talking to. Do you think OP should have to apologize? Let me know in the comments below. Next we've got Dad gets fired for BS reasons, plays the long game, ends up in charge, and takes the family on a cruise. My dad had worked at the same company for almost 30 years before he was abruptly fired for complete BS. He was coordinating an upcoming meeting of people who had to fly in from around the country. One important participant resigned unexpectedly, so Dad canceled the meeting via email and explained why. Apparently, that counted as improperly communicating privileged information, and he was fired the next day. All this happened a week after Dad's boss retired and was replaced by a new guy who wanted to cut costs. What a coincidence. This was about 10 years ago, near the height of the recession. Dad was in his 50s, hadn't interviewed for a job since the early 1980s. He wasn't sure he'd ever find another job. My mom went back to work at a school to pay the bills, while Dad scrounged together what he could by doing some crappy online consulting gigs for basically minimum wage. They managed to keep their heads above water, but only barely. Dad was out of work for a year and a half. He finally landed a job at a new company 3 states away, coincidentally about an hour away from where my wife and I lived and were expecting Dad's first grandchild. Mom and Dad moved to live about 20 minutes away from us. They had paid off the mortgage on their house, so they decided to keep it and rent it out, planning to retire there in a few years. New company treated Dad very well. Better salary than he had made at old company, good benefits, and respect from his coworkers and superiors. A year later, Mom and Dad were able to buy a second, smaller house near their grandkids. Dad mentioned a few things about his time at old company to his new bosses. Nothing confidential or anything, more like overall strengths and weaknesses. Of course, the story of how he got fired came out as well. It turns out that when you work at a company for over 25 years, you learn a thing or two about how it works, and cutting costs by firing experienced employees can make your company vulnerable. New companies started to get very interested. They saw an important business opportunity and also a chance to get revenge on behalf of a valued employee. A couple years later, new company bought old company. They were both big companies, and mergers of this size take time. But when the dust settled, it was clear there were redundancies, divisions, and products that both companies had that new company only needed one of. They kept as many of old company's people as they could, and very few lost their jobs. Except, of course, for the people responsible for firing Dad. New company put Dad in charge of the building he used to work in at old company and let him choose his employees from both old and new companies. Dad had to move back to the old state, so new company helped sell his house in the new state and gave him a moving stipend of several $1,000s. But Mom and Dad were just moving back into their own house. They sold their new house, which they had made payments and improvements on for 5 years, for a nice profit. With that money, plus the moving stipend, they paid off debts, saved for retirement, and took me, my siblings, our spouses, and the grandkids on a cruise. Edit. Since people are asking, I never heard exactly what transpired when the guy who fired Dad got downsized, but since it's Christmas, I'm actually able to just ask him. Dad wouldn't say. Exit interviews are supposed to stay private. I told him about this post, with all the names left out, and that people wanted to know. He just grinned and said, that would be improperly communicating privileged information. Next we've got, bully me for being hard of hearing in a room full of people? Have fun getting fired and evicted. Okay, so I'm not the type to ask for impossible crap or to demand ridiculous accommodations. And don't get me wrong, I'm usually very polite to service workers, but I will straight up go full jerk mode when I don't get what I'm paying for, and when workers are being purposely dismissive or rude. I do this weird sort of stern middle-aged mother jerk thing when I'm being dismissed at customer service. or when I have to deal with my boyfriend's bank, which will put him on hold for like 4 hours and treat him like absolute crap until I get on the phone, and suddenly they're all, "Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, certainly, ma'am, we can fix that right away, ma'am." But there is exactly one instance when I have gone full Karen, entirely out of necessity. So when I was 16, I paid over $150 for an all-day pass to get into a theme park event in my city that I go to every year. That's a lot of money to me, even now, but it's a huge deal and it's tradition. Problem is, the park is super loud and I'm hard of hearing, auditory processing disorder, and a little deaf, so I have a hard time understanding what people are saying. The best way I can describe it is it's sort of like trying to hear somebody talk to you while you're underwater, if also while you were underwater there was a swarm of bees loudly buzzing around your head. This theme park is owned by a multi-billion-dollar company that pretty much runs the city, and they are widely known for being huge jerks who just care about money. But the park is tradition and everybody goes. Seriously, don't feel bad for them, they're terrible. My point is the media in my city is literally scrabbling for a takedown story for this company. We were in the thick of it in the ride section where things are noisiest and I can't make out a darn thing. I'm walking into one of my favorite rides with my boyfriend, which takes place in an enclosed room, but you can still hear all the noise from outside that I have gone on every year since I was like 6 years old, and the rules have changed as to where you put your bags. This is fine, if a little overkill, but I'm glad it's safer now. There are no signs signifying the rule change, so they are relying on you understanding the guy talking who doesn't sign. That's a big no-no for deaf/hard of hearing people, but with a little extra effort from the person trying to talk to you, you can get the gist of what's being said just fine. This 35-year-old man then decides to openly mock me, calling me a downy for putting my bags where I've been putting them for the past decade. This whole thing lasts like 15 whole minutes with no exaggeration. He's going as far as to make other riders boo and clap at me as I desperately tried to figure out what was going on. I was confused and scared. My boyfriend, who can hear perfectly, was with me at the time and is trying to explain to me what this man wants, but even he can't understand because the instructions are so confusing and he's purposely being cryptic to drag this out. The door is closed and he won't let anybody else leave until the ride was over, even when I was banging on the door trying to get out. I was literally crying at one point as people laughed at me, right up until I started signing and they realized I literally cannot understand. Straight silence across the ride as nobody wants to get involved. Ride operator guy doesn't care, even when my boyfriend is telling him I can't hear him, and tell to him clearly what he wants me to do so he can sign it to me. After that 15 minutes was up, finally some random citizen waves to get my attention and plays charades with me for 30 seconds before I 100% understand what was being asked of me and did it, to which the ride operator scoffs at this guy and starts to slow clap, while literally refusing to start the ride until everybody awkwardly slow claps with him. At this point, everybody just wants this to be over and humors this guy while I'm still crying. The ride started and the entire time it was dead silent except for me sobbing. It was bad. People apologized to me outside and told me they were sorry for playing along and that they wished they had been the one to help me. Whatever. Anyway, I ruined that guy's life over the course of the next hour. I went to the customer service kiosk, which was near the entrance where it was quieter. I didn't need an interpreter, so I sent my boyfriend away to enjoy his day since mine was already shot. It was a hard sell. He was very protective after that whole fiasco. The customer service lady tried to give me a voucher for half-price $30 ice cream and told me the guy was new and was just trying to do his job and that I should calm down. Oh? I did not pay $150 every year for a decade to be bullied for me being legally deaf by some guy you brought on a week ago. I want your manager's manager on the phone right now, or so help me God. I made like 15 calls. I threatened a class action lawsuit. I literally called a family friend who was a lawyer right there at the customer service to show I was serious. I was pretty reasonable with anybody who wasn't acting like a Class A jerk, called my local deaf and hard of hearing advocacy group, and the kicker, I called like 6 separate news channels. They were very interested in my story. This guy's boss came down to do damage control to tell me he was going to put the guy on suspension until the theme park moved to the next city in a couple days. Not good enough. Who's your boss? I was out for blood. Once I'd reached literally as far up as I could go, some lady had to drive in from across the city to deal with me. The ride people's manager and the customer service people's manager were full-blown arguing about what to do as I began practicing what I was going to tell the news people when I got home. Apparently, they would have had to close the ride for like 4 hours while they got the only other guy who could operate it in from some event he was at. Maybe a wedding? I don't know, I wasn't listening. I didn't give a crap. Then I said something along the lines of, "It's not my fault you hired a discriminatory egghead who likes to pick on deaf girls. I want him fired, and I want this crap on a record somewhere. I want consequences, and I want my ticket comped before I talk to highly respected state newspaper." They both turned to me at once, and it was like 2 owl bobbleheads looking at me. "You're a minor?" That man's butt was grass right then and there, and I was the lawnmower. He had harnessed the wind, and I was the whirlwind. There was no saving him. Not only did they comp my ticket, they also gave both my boyfriend and I VIP passes and bought me lunch from any food stand in the theme park. Turns out, the guy was actually living with the traveling theme park for the summer, sort of like a 21st century circus, but with running water, in a park-owned trailer as they traveled across the country. I was unaware of this, but I'll be honest, it wasn't an unwelcome surprise. A security guard, at my insistence, led me to the edge of the closed-off trailer area where I watched him pack his crap into a backpack and a box, leaving what he couldn't carry, presumably to be picked up later or thrown out, before he was led by 2 separate security guards out the back, basically evicted and fired in one solid punch. I don't know where he went, but I highly doubt he had a place to crash in the city. The park then, hilariously, called my 50-year-old dad to ask if the punishment and compensation for me was to his satisfaction and if he would be pressing charges or speaking to anybody about the incident. They meant the news, and he basically just said, "Yeah, that's fine." What direction did he go in? What a goof. They would not tell him. Eventually, he got me on the phone and asked if I wanted to press charges against the park or if I would want to speak to anybody. No, I'm alright. I'd like a comped lunch for my boyfriend who was there with me when it happened though, if that's alright. That way we can eat together. My dad laughed and told them what I wanted, and that was that. They had me sign some paperwork that basically prohibited me from talking to the news or posting about it on social media, and a customer service dude went, found my boyfriend, and led him to where I was waiting with 2 VIP lanyards and eating. I'd already ordered. Will not bite. What did you do? I ordered us a bloomin' onion, a plate of deep-fried pickles, a plate of deep-fried Oreos, because I know you wanted to try them. Also, we have 2 VIP tickets now, and another $150 to spend. Oh, and 2 sodas. We are still dating, and we go to the theme park every year. Nobody has bothered me about my hearing since. Next we've got White Elephant Tantrum. I spent the day with my significant other, my kid, and his 2, at their grandparents' house. They don't really do much gift exchanging for the adults, so it's all for the kids. This was my first year there, so I got each of the kids a nice gift. My significant other is really close with his nephews, and he spends a lot of his time answering their questions, snapping Lego pieces together for them, and being climbed on. It's pretty great to watch, because his kids are in their early teens, and he misses the toddler years. We put together a fun white elephant exchange, just for the kids. Most of the kids wanted the same thing, a Nintendo Switch. I'm the nerdy dad, and I know how big of a deal this is. I got my Game Boy Advance on Christmas and didn't put it down for 4 years. I got all of the boys one. My favorite, I'll never tell, is my significant other's niece. She's 6 and a total girly girl. She's the only girl in the family and is usually somewhere in the background because she is shy. Her mom told me that she really wants Polly Pocket. I loaded up on lots of Polly Pocket stuff to match the price I spent on the boys. I found one that was about the size of a Nintendo Switch and wrapped it in bright pink paper. All the boys had theirs wrapped in a favorite superhero or anime character. What we did instead of the traditional white elephant was have them make trades until they correctly guessed what gift belonged to which kid. The funny thing is that we had their grandparents dress them in PJs to match the gift wrap the night before. 3 out of 8 of the kids there live with the grandparents because their mom has problems. She is the entitled parent in the story. We get everyone swapping gifts and laughing, trying to figure out the riddles. A couple of times we are sure they figured it out from their comments, but miss again. It's a lot of fun and everyone is laughing. Entitled parent suddenly goes to one of her younger sons, whispers something to him. He jumps up, grabs the pink-colored gift, and rips it open. He just stands there laughing. My significant other grins, thinking he's just being playful, and goes to get the gift from him to retape it. Entitled parent grabs the package and sits on the floor in a ball, covering it. My significant other just stares at his sister, confused. The game's not over. I'm just going to retape it. Entitled parent. I know it's the best gift because you want niece to get it. You guys always baby her. Significant other. It's a kid's game. You should be ashamed. Everyone was telling her to stop acting like a child and give the gift back so it could be put back in the game. Everyone had been having fun until she lost her mind. Everyone wants the best of everything for her. Why can't anyone ever do anything for my kids? Grandma. Your kids live with us. We do everything for them. We do more for them than all of the other kids combined. Stop being crazy. Entitled mom. I hate you all. She starts ripping the package apart. When she sees what it is, she throws it at the wall. Everyone came to a dead silence. She storms out. The kids all look concerned, but no one is crying. We just get them reseated. I give them all the correct packages because everyone is so quiet. While they are unwrapping them, my significant other gets the giant hamper of Polly Pocket toys from our trunk. All the boys are oohing and eyeing about their gift. When our niece sees the hamper, her whole face lights up. I never knew a little kid could choke you out with a hug, but I almost found out. For the rest of the day, she was sitting on the floor surrounded by toys. She looked so happy. The boys all took turns helping each other set up their devices. I will forever be known as the cool uncle. As we were ready to leave, we heard my partner's brother and 2 sisters in the yard arguing. The entitled parent sister was screaming about something, and the other 2 were telling her she couldn't leave because she was too messed up. My significant other later told me that she was saying that I purposely tricked her into thinking our niece's gifts were better than her 3 sons' gifts, and that I was gaslighting her on purpose. Entitled parents cancel my health insurance out of spite. So when I was a teenager in my first year of college, I was still under my father's insurance, provided through his employer. The plan covered my stepmom, himself, and up to 5 kids at no additional cost. I have confirmed this with my mother, who was on the same insurance until their divorce. My dad and stepmom had both worked for this company for over 10 years. This was not an entry-level insurance plan. During my freshman year of college, which I am still paying for, I suffered a violent snowboarding accident, which left my clavicle in many pieces. The injury required 3 surgeries, the first of which I had to wait around a week. Clavicle still shattered. For the next available surgeon near the small college town. My father lived 45 minutes away. Freshmen were not allowed to have cars on campus, and the hospital was 3 miles away from the school. This town did not have Ubers back in the day, and the average temperature in the town was around 25 degrees Fahrenheit for most of the winter. Feels like 0 degrees once the wind kicks up. I had just recently turned 18, so I had to sign a few forms at the hospital, giving my dad permission to access my medical records. I told him that it wasn't a problem and I would sign them the next time I had an appointment. I knew one friend with a car who would sometimes drive me, or my mother would make the 45-minute drive to bring me to the hospital if my friend could not. My dad calls me one night irate because I had not yet signed the forms. I explained to him that my clavicle was in 7+ pieces, and with the sub-freezing temperatures, walking 6 miles round trip while shivering would be excruciatingly painful. At this point, just getting out of a chair sent pain shooting through my shoulder. My father thought that waiting until I had a ride to the hospital was the utmost sign of disrespect. My friend with the car ended up not being around this week, so I didn't have any transportation to the hospital. My dad calls me, yelling about how I have no respect for what he's doing for me. Filling out paperwork was all he had done. My mother had picked me up from the emergency room and had brought me to both previous doctor's appointments, even with the drive. He threatens to cancel my health insurance if I don't get the form signed before my next appointment. I told my mom he was going to cancel my insurance, and she once again drove me to sign the papers. My father never offered to drive, call me a cab, nor asked how I was feeling. Fast forward 3 months, and I should be recovered from my injury. Unfortunately, the surgeon my father picked, because he was the closest to the university, did not do a good job on the surgery. This led to a bloodborne infection and 2 subsequent surgeries. The infection required me to be hooked up to an IV machine for 6 hours a day on antibiotics prescribed to MRSA patients. One day, months after the final surgery, while still on daily IV antibiotics, I get an email while I'm in the car with my mother. The email, yes, an email, is from my dad, and although I don't remember the exact wording, it is along the lines of, "Due to your disrespect and attitude when I asked you to sign the insurance papers, we, my father and stepmother, are taking you off of our insurance policy. The changes will take effect at the end of the calendar year." My mother did not have insurance through her work at this time, and I still had 3 follow-up appointments with the second surgeon, which would go into the following year. Neither my mother nor father are wealthy. Both barely cracked $40K salaries while I was a kid, while supporting 3 kids. This insurance through my father's work was a big deal for our family. I was in tears of disbelief over the email. My father could be a cold person, but never had he done something that felt this cold to me. Because I didn't want to walk for 2 hours in the cold with a broken collarbone, you're going to take that as disrespect? Then cancel the free health insurance on your own son? It's more important for you to feel respected than for your son to have health insurance? You sent an email? My own father couldn't even call me to tell me this? I called him and asked if we could talk about it, as I still had doctor's appointments and my antibiotics and the IV machine could cost thousands of dollars a month without insurance, which neither I nor my mother could afford. He said, "You should have thought about that before you gave me attitude about signing those medical papers," but agreed to talk about it and invited me to lunch. I go to meet him for lunch at a little neighborhood sub shop. I sit down across from him and my stepmom, who are already eating their meals in front of me. I sat down and said hello, and they both continued eating in front of me without offering me any food or drink. My dad invited me to lunch and picked the location. Important to note here that while my dad did not come from money, my stepmom had a multi-million-dollar inheritance from her parents and also a significant life insurance payout from her late husband. I asked if there was anything I could do to have them reconsider. I explained the cost of the antibiotics and IV machine without insurance and the doctor's appointments I still had scheduled through the next year. My stepmom then tells me to my face with the most Karen tone ever, "You know what? You should have thought about that before you told your father you wouldn't sign the papers. Frankly, it's just not worth my time to fill out insurance papers for someone this disrespectful." I was dumbfounded. I looked at my father. He said nothing, his look echoing my stepmother's words. I said, "I have no problem filling out paperwork. I'm happy to come over and fill out the paperwork for you guys. You never said anything about it." He responds, "Well, it's a little too late now. I'm with Karen on this one. It's not about the paperwork, it's about the principle of it." I was infuriated at this point. I stormed out saying, "I'm sorry my health isn't worth your time." I haven't had health insurance in 8 or 9 years now. I eat a lot of vegetables and try and stay active. My arm never healed correctly due to the infection, and the bone is 2 inches shorter and will never be fully fused. I no longer talk to my father in any way. I tried to have a conversation with him several years later, and he still stands by the decision of cutting me off his insurance out of spite. I'm doing better now. For a while, I couldn't understand how a person could do that to their child, but now I see my father only wanted kids so he could have the social status of being a family man. He never wanted anything to do with the responsibilities. Next we've got, "You won't pay rent? Good luck finding a new apartment." So this happened to me about 10 years ago in a big city on the West Coast. I had just finished grad school and was looking for a way to cut down on rent in an already expensive rental market. Now, mind you, I was young, desperate, and inexperienced with roommates at the time, and this was a huge life lesson for me and hopefully for my roommate too. I placed an ad for a roommate on Craigslist, which in hindsight wasn't a smart move. Enter bad roommate. Bad roommate was a few years older than me and at first seemed really cool with a stable job as a licensed masseuse. After interviewing her, hitting it off really well, and getting to know each other for about a month, we rented a loft in downtown around October with the agreement rent/utilities would be split. Around the time our first rent was due, November, bad roommate said that her work had been slow and she would pay rent in the next 2 weeks. Luckily, I had enough in savings, so I covered rent. Well, the 2 weeks came and went, and still no rent. When I asked her about the rent, she yelled and accused me of harassing her. No kidding. While claiming she didn't have money for rent, she would be out of the house from around 9 a.m. until 2 a.m. visiting friends. All of this nonsense continued on, as well as other things such as stealing my food and breaking some of my belongings, including a bottle of wine that my recently deceased sister had gifted to me. Bad roommate's excuse was, "bad energy in the house," while giving me a little smirk. Fast forward to the beginning of December, and you guessed it, still no rent. This time, in addition to yelling at me and breaking my stuff, bad roommate called the police on me, accusing me of making threats. The cops did not do anything as there was no evidence I did anything. For the record, I didn't. But they did give me a lecture about making threats and said next time they came out, I could be arrested or forced to leave the residence. By this time, I was almost out of savings and was fearing eviction. Bad roommate had not paid rent since move-in. The final straw came when I came home to find her threatening my 2 cats who were cowering in the corner. I almost lost it, but due to what happened before with the police, I didn't want to poke the fire. This is when I remembered the officer saying, I could be forced to leave the residence, and the light bulb went off in my head. Now the revenge. I called my best friend, whose father, best friend's dad/attorney, was an attorney. After a phone consultation with him, he told me to pay up the rent and utilities through December and then simply surrender my key, garage remote, etc., with a signed note saying that I surrender possession of the property with a specified date. I snapped a photo of this note and left it with a secretary in the management office. I then proceeded to sign a new lease with the last of my savings 1 week before Christmas while bad roommate was out visiting friends. I packed up all my belongings and left the house pretty much empty for the little bit of belongings she had, a little bit of food in her bed. After about 2 days of angry voicemails, texts, and missed calls from bad roommate telling me what a horrible and irresponsible person I was to do this, boom, dead silence until April. In April, I was served with a summons for breach of contract for abandoning the lease by the landlord. I contacted the attorney, aka best friend's dad, and filed a response to the court with a hearing date set in late May. I showed up to the hearing with my friend's dad, attorney, and his 2, I'm guessing they were assistants. Bad roommate was also there, looking smug, think wine bottle incident smirk. Next thing I know, the other attorney announces they are dismissing me from the lawsuit since I surrendered possession of the property, but they were not dismissing it against bad roommate. Bad roommate's face went gaunt. The smirk disappeared, and it was priceless. After some back and forth with her almost getting held in contempt of court for outbursts, the judge ruled against my roommate with full judgment awarded to the landlord. The first cherry on top, best friend's dad represented me pro bono. The final cherry on top, I came to find out a month later via an angry voicemail from bad roommate that after being kicked out of a friend's house while couch surfing, her credit was trashed. She had an eviction on her record and subsequently could not get another apartment, and that again, I was a horrible, irresponsible person. I never heard from her again afterwards, but she was on the news a few months later, mugshot and all, for trashing a convenience store. Last I heard, she moved to Las Vegas. In the end, my credit did take a small hit. Even though the suit was dismissed, the debt was put into collections and reported to the credit bureau. For the next 4 years, I tried unsuccessfully to have it removed. At the 4-year anniversary of the lawsuit, I petitioned the credit bureau under the advice of my friend's dad/attorney to clear my record as the statute for filing suit had expired at the 4-year mark. Failure to comply with the request could result in a lawsuit against the credit bureau for slander of credit. To be honest, I just followed his instructions, not knowing what I was even talking about. A couple days later, I received a call that my credit had been cleared. Next we've got, I don't work here, but you do. Back when I was desperate for money, I took a job servicing filtered water coolers. I was to go to Business X and change their filters, then leave. Simple and very low-paying job. One day, I get an assignment to go to a retail store and change the filters in the break room. Sure, no problem. Done it before. I get there and the manager, the Karen in this case, is my contact, so I contact her and she meets me at the door. So far, so good. No sign yet that she's even a Karen. I get shown to the break room and put down my bag of filters and tools next to the cooler. And here we go. Karen, you can't put that bag there. Me, sorry? Why not? People have to come through here. Note, bag is out of the way of any door or throughway. Me, okay, well, where should I put it so it's out of the way? Karen rolls her eyes. Find a spot. I have other things to do. She walks away. I put the bag on the counter next to the water cooler, shut off the water, and get to work. I remove and drain the old filters into a bucket that I carry with me, and I'm getting out the new filters when Karen comes back. You seriously put the bag on the counter? Are you an idiot? Me, I'm sorry. Where should I put my bag so it's not in your way? Anywhere but there. The germs on that darn thing alone are contaminating the surface. Me, I have disinfectant spray with me. I'll give it a wipe down before I go. I'm calling your manager. Okay, do you have the number for the company I work for? Idiot. She walks out. I don't care already. I'm being paid crap, and she is the idiot. I don't like talking BS, so I don't. I already had a plan to get her back. I finish up with new filters, gaskets, and a bit of new plastic water line, as one of the lines had yellowed. I give the contaminated counter a spray and a wipe just as I said I'm ready to leave. Me, calling out, I'm all done. Have a nice day. Karen pops head out of office. Whatever, idiot. You won't be coming back here, by the way. Me, okay. Oh, but I would. I plop my stuff in my car and go back into the store. It's a retail chain, since gone out of business, but it was big at the time. I come back in, and there it is. The Karen. What are you doing back in here, you idiot? I told you not to come back. Do you have item A in this store? I'd like to buy one, please. Her face melts and her eyes go wide. Now I'm the customer, and she has to serve me. And she just called me an idiot. We don't sell those. I knew that they did, as I had spotted them on the way in. No? Are you sure? Yes. Me, pointing. What are those? I'm talking normally, but the smirk on my face feels so good. Oh, I didn't notice them there. I buy the item and thank her so sweetly for her help, then tell her I'll be filling out the online survey on my customer experience. Me. So, what's your name? I'd like to mention you. Oh, the squirming. It was awesome. Karen. Please don't tell them about our interaction when you came to change the filter. Me. I'll make you a deal. Don't be so darn disrespectful to people in the future, and I'll hold back on my review of your disgusting behavior. She nods, and I, anticlimactically, give her a pass. Do you think OP should have filled out the online survey, telling them how she treated him? Let me know in the comments below. Next we've got, Entitled Jerk at the Airport Loses It on Me. Last year, 2018, I was with my girlfriend in the bar of a British airport waiting for a flight to the US. We had some time because our flight was one of many delayed by the weather. The bar was busy with lots of people in the same situation. After a long queue to get served, we luckily found a small table away from the crowd and sat down. On my way, I noticed a beer-bellied man and an angry-faced wife further back in the queue complaining very loudly. He had the red nose of a drinker, so I'll call him Rudolph. I was wearing a dark blue jacket and a pale blue shirt and black chinos, very casual and nothing like the staff, who were wearing black polo shirts with bright yellow piping and logos, gold name tags, and black trousers. After I had been sitting with my girlfriend for a minute, we discovered that one of us was a clumsy jerk. That clumsy jerk knocked his drink over with his elbow. I did my best to mop it up with the napkins on the table, but they were slightly less absorbent than marble, so I was just steering beer all around the table. Like the good-hearted and responsible citizen that I am, I suggested to my girlfriend, "I don't think anyone saw. Let's buzz off sharpish." But no, Mrs. Goody Two-Shoes said, "Go to the bar and ask for a cloth." I quickly asserted my manly dominance by going to the bar and asking for a cloth. As I was wiping up my lager, Rudolph approached me. He looked about my age, 30s. He also sounded about 5 pints ahead of me in the drinks race. He tapped my arm heavily. He asked me, "Why is it taking so long to get served?" I answered, "It's busier than usual. It's probably the extra customers because of the flight delays." For some reason, my attempt to explain made him angry. He barked at me. "All the more reason that it should be all hands to the pumps behind the bar." I must have looked surprised by his anger. I said, "I suppose you're right." "Well?" he said, loudly enough to have heads turning. "Well, what?" I responded. The answer absolutely lit him up. I'm not sure of the exact words because he was trying to talk much faster than his mouth could manage. The point he was apparently trying to make through the shouting and spitting was that I should be behind the bar serving drinks instead of tossing about tidying the tables. That's when it clicked with me that he thought I was an employee. I said, "I don't work behind the bar. I'm just..." That sentence would have finished, "I'm just a customer like you." But he cut me off. I was still wiping up my mess with a large cloth in my right hand. He grabbed my right wrist and continued his tirade. I told him very clearly to let go of me. My girlfriend saw what was happening and quickly stood up. She put her hands around my left arm and asked me to stay calm. She told Rudolph, "He doesn't work here." Rudolph didn't hear or didn't understand because his response to her was, "Mind your own business." I was a little peeved by that. I saw Mrs. Rudolph trundling towards us, pushing the crowd aside. She looked like a member of a rugby team's drag act, and I assumed she was coming over to team up on me. I used both hands to lock his left wrist. I pulled him towards me. As he instinctively pulled back, I changed from pulling to pushing and helped him fall backwards into the furniture. He went over with the grace of a newborn elephant. His wife tried to help him up, but that project failed and she fell on him. While the two of them wriggled on each other, my girlfriend said very clearly, "Do not hit him." We started to walk out with my girlfriend in front of me. After a few more seconds of floor comedy, Rudolph got up and followed us. I turned to face him, and he took a swing for me. A slow, wide, drunken, telegraphed right hook. I think a sedated stroke patient could have avoided it. I leaned back out of the way, and his fist went past me and carried on. His momentum meant he continued with the punch until the rotation took him too far and he fell over on his own feet again. As he stood up from the beer puddle he had landed in, I just laughed at the 2 tones of blue his shirt had become because of the huge wet patches. As you can imagine, this improved his mood enormously. He charged for me. I slid left, and with a little push on his right side, he missed me again. This time he stayed on his feet. When he turned, he would have gone for me another time, but he noticed the police that had arrived in the bar. Mrs. Rudolph called to the police and pointed at me and claimed that I was the one that started it. I was expecting some support from the crowd. I wasn't expecting a round of applause, but maybe someone saying, "No, he didn't hit him." Instead, all I could see were couples gossiping and people trying to improve the positions of their phones for filming, and the queue reforming. The police, as you'd expect, separated us, and one listened to Rudolph while a second listened to me. The one who was interviewing me and my girlfriend was interrupted by a third officer. They stepped away. It became clear that cop number 3 had seen the CCTV. Cop 3 went to Rudolph's interviewer and did the same. Cop 2 explained they had seen the video and they had satisfied themselves that I wasn't to blame. He asked me to go with them to make a statement. After discussing how long it would take, I decided I'd rather not risk missing the flight, so I'd do it after we returned. I took the officer's card. At that time, Rudolph and his wife started yelling. My guess would be that the police had given him the bad news about the video evidence. He wouldn't calm down, so they cuffed him and led him away. Cop 2 told me Rudolph was arrested. He'd be taken to the police station at the airport and possibly the main station if he needed to be detained. Either way, his bags would be removed from the flight he was booked on because he wouldn't be allowed to fly today. When I returned to Britain, I phoned the officer as promised. Rudolph had been transferred to the main police station because he couldn't be interviewed until he was sober. After a night in his cell, he had become very cooperative. He had one conviction 11 years earlier, so the police decided to deal with this offense by giving Rudolph a formal caution. It doesn't carry any punishment, but it will be taken into account if he offends again. Going back to the day of the incident, after all the excitement was over, my girlfriend and I settled into our flight. She said she was very pleased with me for staying calm. She hinted that there might be a special reward. I mentioned that I'd never joined the Mile High Club, and if she felt like rewarding my good behavior, we could take care of that in the bathroom. I'll always remember her reply. You can buzz right off. Entitled Mom throws food to the floor because I didn't break a rule for her. So, as stated in my past few posts here, I work at Tesco, and it's in a pretty bad area if I'm being honest. I'd never live there. And thanks to Christmas picking away at people's packets, a lot of people have started attending the reduction shelves a lot more than normal, so my job has been pretty hectic as of late. Normally, it's the occasional pushy customer who barges past me to get something off the shelf, and I don't mind that too much. It's to be somewhat expected, to be honest. But today, something happened that actually made my blood boil. It all started after I was just finishing off the first reduction of the day. There are 3 normally, and today I was working late, so I ended up doing all 3. When I saw an arm reach over my head and grab a leg of lamb off the bottom shelf, I then heard a loud sigh, followed by an, "Excuse me?" I turned around to meet eyes with a woman, late 40s, with typical Karen haircut, and holding her hand is a girl who looks around 6 or 7. So I say, "Yes, can I help you?" "This lamb is only £1 cheaper than normal. You need to make it cheaper because I want to buy lots of them and freeze them all. My girl loves her lamb, don't you, sweetie?" Side note, there were around 15 lamb legs on the shelf, left over from Christmas. The girl nods. I smile and respond with, "Unfortunately, that's as low as it will go for now. I won't be doing the next review until around 2 o'clock. She does one of those weird fake smiles and asks, "And how much will it be then?" I tell her I didn't know, as the price normally varies from between 30 to 55% off, depending on how many we have sold since the first reduction. She then smiles again and says, "Well, I don't think that will be cheap enough either. Can you do any better?" I then explain that at around 6 o'clock, we do our final reduction and anything that's left gets around 75% knocked off. And this seemed to please the entitled mom, and as she was walking away, she shouts back at me, "So, if you save me about 5 of those lamb legs, I'll be back at around 7 o'clock. "Sorry, ma'am, but I'm not allowed to save stock for anyone. It's first come, first served. That's the rules," I shout back. Entitled mom laughs and repeats the fact that she will be back at 7, and then walks with her daughter around the corner, so I continue with my work. I was about halfway done with the final reduction of the day, and by this point, it's around 6:45, and all of the mentioned lamb legs are already gone. They were picked off the shelves almost instantly, and this is when I see entitled mom coming down the aisle towards me, basically dragging her poor daughter behind her, and I can already see the fire in her eyes. "Where is all the lamb? I told you to save me some." I take a step back and try to explain. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but like I said earlier, we aren't allowed to—" "No, I don't want to hear your excuses. We needed that lamb for our meals. We don't have a lot of money after Christmas, and that was going to feed my baby. Now she is going to starve." I was almost certain that entitled mom was exaggerating, but to try and calm the situation down, I offered her some of the other food I hadn't reduced yet at a slightly better rate. Entitled mom then looked through the trays that the rest of the food was stacked in. I like to take it off the shelves and keep it next to me so I know what I have and haven't done yet. But when she had finished, she started screaming again. "We don't want any of this crap. We want our lamb. Get some off this shelf and give it to me now. You have to, or we will starve." I really am sorry, but I'm not allowed. I cut myself off when I saw entitled mom put her hands on the stack of trays of food that I stood next to and she pushed them onto the ground. The food went everywhere. Yogurt, meat, milk, pasta, dips all over the floor. Me and the other customers. Some of it even went on her own daughter. At this point, I'm furious, and I want to scream at entitled mom. I want to throw the food back in her face and shove her to the ground. A few members of staff, including my manager, have now run over and are making sure everyone is okay. Entitled mom then begins to walk away without even checking to see if her daughter was okay. My manager followed after her and left me and the other staff to clean the mess. I ended up staying around 45 minutes late to clean up the floor and myself. Around 150 pounds of food had to go to waste tonight, all because I didn't break a rule for someone. Edit. So this post blew up overnight, and it seems a lot of people wanted to know if entitled mom faced any consequences. So I called my manager this morning and asked about it, and she explained that entitled mom was forced to pay for damages to the floor/shelves and trays, as well as getting banned from the store. I don't know exactly how much she had to pay, but she told me it was around 600 pounds total. Next we've got Karen wreaks havoc on my family for months. She gets arrested. So some backstory. I live in a suburban area. I am by no means rich. I'm at best lower middle class, and I've been living in the house I'm in for almost 11 years now. We were lucky we got it off foreclosure back in 2009 when I was a teenager, so we finally got to move out of the crappy trailer home I grew up in. I saw some neighbors come and go since, including the old lady who was the predecessor of the Karen. She was mean and seemed to have it out for me, sometimes calling the police for noise complaints from the house. However, I never truly got in trouble since my neighbors always backed me up. The most they were scared of was my pit bull, but my neighbors knew her well. She's particularly blind and totally deaf, but she can still do some tricks because she can read lips. She's a smart dog. She's also naturally very protective of us, so while she barks at anyone who comes near us, she'll never harm us all. She even got out a few times and just cuddled with some of our old neighbors, even though people kept insisting she was aggressive because pit bulls are naturally aggressive, and so on and so forth. I heard it plenty of times already, but she's never going away until she goes from old age. Around mid-July this year, it turns out the old neighbor was completely incapable of fending for herself anymore due to her age, and she was put in a retirement home a few miles down the road from where we live. The house was in her kids' names, but they decided to put it on the market instead. It was vacant for several weeks until early mid-August. She came. The Karen. Cue intense piano solo, thunder crackling, and wicked witches laughing. I don't know how long she was scouting the house for, but around early to mid-August, she officially moved in. Day one, she goes around the neighborhood. Seems normal, until she came to our door. Instead of greeting us, she began to make demands of us, insisting we remove our tree and the plants in our front lawn since they'll blow leaves on my lawn and my lawn has to be maintained and you and your plants are going to hurt it in the long run. Note, she was literally the street away from us, a total of 8 houses apart, on the other side of the street. We told her no and that she'll be fine, but for the next 10 or so minutes, she kept pushing it until finally my stepmother slammed the door on her. Apparently, later on, from what I learned, she made similar demands to other neighbors, and some demanding that they either move out entirely because they'll scare her son with their appearance, and some threatening to call the cops. I still don't get her reasoning behind this, but whatever. Day 2. I'm off to work around 7 in the morning when I begin to unlock the car. Karen saw me and ran across to me, seemingly fuming. "You, stop right there. You have a pit bull in that house?" Me, confused. Yeah? But don't worry, she's a total teddy bear. She's just— "No, I demand you get rid of that dog now. Pit bulls are the lapdog of the devil, and they're good for nothing. They're super aggressive, and I bet that she's been dreaming of biting your head off many times already, and as it stands, she's a threat to my son and the neighborhood." Me, taken aback, but after a few moments, "Ma'am, as I said, she's a total teddy bear. I know you're scared. Pit bulls have a bad reputation, but I swear she's been trained well, and she wouldn't hurt a fly. I've been living with her all my life, and not once have I seen her attack a soul. I swear, you and everyone else is safe."
BS! You're lying. If you don't get her impounded or put her down today, I'm calling the cops on you, saying you and that devil dog assaulted me.
Who are they gonna believe? Someone like me?
Or a low-life jerk like you?
I was very much upset at this lady, so I just got in my car and began to drive off. She slammed her fist on the roof of my car several times, but eventually I got to work. Luckily, she didn't leave a dent. When I came back home around 5:30 that afternoon, there were 2 police cars near my house and Karen standing there, giving me a crap-eating grin. I got out, and the moment I went inside, I see my dog sitting on the chair, with 2 policemen sitting on the couch, and my mom and stepmom in the living room. From what I got, my dog was trying to protect my mom and stepmom once the police came in, but luckily my stepmom managed to calm the dog down, and things were well. After talking to them for a while, they decided to drop the case then and there, but keep an eye out on both my dog and Karen. She got off without any trouble, I don't think even a warning. A few weeks later, she begins the same argument about getting rid of my dog, and once again threatened to call the cops. She never did, but fast forward to Halloween. My uncle was with us, same with his 3 daughters, and I helped take care of them. My uncle was on the front lawn sitting in the trunk of his truck, handing out candy and other stuff to any kids who came his way. An hour and a half in, the cops came again and confront my uncle in the front lawn. My stepmom goes out to figure out the problem. Apparently, someone called the police on my uncle, saying that he was harassing people who came his way. We were shocked and upset. My uncle is nothing like what they're saying. We eventually figure out who called the cops. Lo and behold, it's Karen. We go to her house, and both me, my uncle, and stepmom are fuming. She opens the door, and instead of trying to talk it out, like a normal person, she played the victim, insisting she and her son saw my uncle in the act. We didn't buy it. Plus, our neighbors caught wind of it and soon defended my uncle, saying he was just sitting in his truck, handing out candy and nothing more. Karen kept insisting her son was in danger and refused to talk with us anymore. She slammed the door in our face, and the next morning she puts a letter on our front door, simply calling us problematic for her son and neighborhood as a whole. The next time she has to report us, she's going to make darn sure she's going to ruin our lives forever. Yes, I'm serious. I'm not sure how I got the ire of this woman other than having a fluffball dog. The next day, she does it again and threatens to call the cops on us if we don't get rid of my dog. Then came the incident that nearly ruined my life. I was at work in early November, and I was doing my normal thing out in the shop when she came in and asked for me specifically. My boss figured that we knew each other. Oh, trust me, we did, and brought me over. She wanted me to get a part for her, and my first thought was, okay, but you could have literally asked anyone else. But I complied and did it anyway, figuring it was only going to be a minute of being near her. What she wanted was on the top shelf, and when I got it, she got angry saying,
"Why did you grab me?"
And I just looked confused. I said, "Sorry, I'm trying to get your thing. Sorry if I bumped into you," and got it. She looked mad and walked away. A few hours later, I'm called in, and apparently she filed a harassment claim against me. And when I told them to check the cameras to where we were, they found out this was total BS. But the police were there, so I asked, "She's been harassing me and my family for months. Is there anything I can do?" Which they just told me, "Unless you have proof, we cannot do anything. No proof, no charges." I was furious when I drove home for the day and decided to talk to a friend of mine who knew law much better than me. He recommended to record her in the act and that my state was a one-party consent state, so I figured next time she did her trick, I'd have her. Well, it turns out I never had to do anything. Weird, I know. A few days after Thanksgiving, I walked out of my house to go to work, and I saw a police car across the street, and Karen in the back of the car in handcuffs. Well, I couldn't see it exactly, but I figured she was. And then I saw her son. Apparently, she started something with him earlier that day, and she threatened him and the entire family. He called the cops, and that was it. Next we've got my worst customer ever. So almost a couple of years ago, I had a guy that emailed me back and forth for months. He was pretty cool, but picky beyond belief and couldn't decide on what he wanted. Finally though, he ordered this ultra deluxe 4-player arcade machine wrapped in Star Wars graphics. He spared no expense, spending $3,000 plus $220 shipping. The machine arrives in Melbourne 5 days later, and he calls me up losing his crap. It's been damaged by the freight company. I send everything fully insured, so I assured him it was okay. He's covered. Please send me the pics of the damage. It was only very slight, nothing cosmetic, but the console was a little dislodged as they must have stacked something heavy on it. I assured the customer it could be fixed. I'll contract a cabinet maker to come out to him and repair it at my expense. Then I'll go through insurance later. Nope, he didn't want that. So I said, okay, I'll arrange for collection and have it brought back to me, and I'll issue him a full refund including freight. Nope, he didn't want that either. Okay, I said, what would make you happy then? It's something easy to fix. Perhaps I can pay you what I'd pay the contractor, about $250, and you can fix it. Nope, he wanted a full refund, and he wanted to keep the machine too. I said that won't happen. Insurance won't allow it as the damage is tiny. It's like car insurance. They won't write off a whole car for minor damage that can be fixed. He didn't care. He wanted a refund. I said they won't do it, and I certainly won't pay out of pocket. Either I'll arrange collection of the unit at my expense and issue a refund to him, or we have it repaired. Nope, he paid via PayPal, and he's putting through a dispute because the item didn't arrive as described. I advised him that PayPal's rules also state that in order to get a refund, he'll need to show proof that he had sent the item back or arranged with the sender to have it collected. Nope, he's keeping it and getting a refund. So I advised him that what he was committing was fraud and theft. Also, PayPal will freeze the $3,220 in my account, and I'm not at fault here. That's what PayPal does, you see. If anyone lodges a dispute, they automatically freeze the funds in the seller's account. It's guilty until proven innocent with them. It can also take up to 90 days to resolve, sometimes 6 months. I know, it's happened before. He didn't care. The next thing I knew, I had a notification from PayPal. The funds were frozen pending the dispute. The next step is stating your case to them, providing evidence, etc., where they relay the info back and forth between the buyer and seller. PayPal always sides with the buyer. Sellers are garbage as far as they're concerned. If it can't be resolved between buyer and seller, then you can opt to have PayPal decide, but their decision is absolute. I provided my transcripts advising the customer that I'd collect the item and refund him, and he provided them with a fake pickup receipt. As far as they knew, he's done his part. Now he's eligible, so they ruled in his favor. So this jerk now has his money back and my $3,000 machine. I was fuming, and he wouldn't answer my calls or emails. I'm a big guy, and I had a rough upbringing in a tough neighborhood, so I was about to jump into my truck, drive the 900 kilometers south, knock on his door, and watch him crap himself as I repossess my machine. But my wife, being the voice of reason, calmed me down and said to try legal avenues first. Coincidentally, he emails me 3 days later and says the computer in the machine stopped working. I replied, "Which planet do you live on where you steal an item, then complain it doesn't work?" He laughed at me and said he had an IT guy. A few days after that, I get a call from a guy saying that his friend bought an item and the hard drive is dead. It was his IT guy, and I don't think he knew the whole story. I asked him to find the serial number. It's just the date it was built and the iteration. He read the number out, and I said, "Oh, it's in warranty. Send it back and I'll send a fresh new one." He bought it and sent it back. Now, note that he said the hard drive was dead. That's a good thing. If it had been the computer, he could just use anything else and use the hard drive as a backup. But since it was dead, and now I had his computer too, he has to buy a new system, which would set him back at least $450, but he still couldn't play games in it. You can download the apps, but there's a ton of configuration work and button mapping, etc. IT guy calls me a few days later asking for the computer, and I told him the story and that nope, he can go forget himself. He also laughed and asked how hard it could possibly be to just download stuff. See, what they didn't know is that I have a little failsafe built in. The encoder I use isn't mapped to the default keys on the apps. I changed everything around on the hardware to stop people trying to just clone it. It's not hard to get around, but most people aren't familiar with the nuances of emulators. Inevitably, I get another call a few days later from a different guy saying that he'd built his own machine but couldn't get it working. The symptoms were exactly that of trying to get my controls working on a different system. It was definitely the IT guy fishing. I played dumb and said I didn't know. Sorry. Now this guy has an empty, useless cabinet, so he left me a 1-star review on Google. It's since been removed, but it read something like, "Poor quality build, flimsy, system doesn't work, do not buy from these people." I was about to jump into my truck again and drive down to that jerk. But again, my wife is like a bucket of ice water to my fire. So I wrote a long letter to PayPal attaching all of my evidence of his fraud. Then I responded to the 1-star review with attachments to the emails and his admission to committing the fraud. Also, I displayed his name and email address to smoke him out. He immediately called and said, "Look, no hard feelings, okay? But I received a damaged item and I'm entitled to compensation. Remove my details." He was getting spammed relentlessly, but he seriously believed he did nothing wrong. I told him to go forget himself and to enjoy his useless machine. I was still burning though. I forgot about it after a few weeks. PayPal didn't respond, so I cut my losses and moved on. But then something beautiful happened. It's as though the universe aligned and said, "Hey Abs, we're not going to crap on you today. Here, take this gift on a silver platter." I was on eBay looking for old non-working machines I can buy and refurb. There's good money to be made doing that. A 1-day refurb could pull in over $1,000 profit. He's listed my machine, but contrary to his Google review, the description was marvelous hand-built arcade cabinet, built by a master carpenter, flawless finish and quality, missing computer, good for a do-it-yourself project. I'm not a carpenter, by the way. He had it listed for $1,100. That was still $1,100 pure profit to him since he got it for free. I bought it under my wife's account and had it delivered to my home address. When I sent it, it was wrapped in about a 4-inch thick layer of bubble wrap. When it arrived, it had a flimsy single layer of less than 5 millimeters thick. The courier who dropped it off was the same guy who picked it up from me. We were good friends and he knew the story. So I said I was going to damage it, make it look serious, but nothing I can't fix in a few minutes. He agreed and said that he had logged the damage as due to insufficient packaging. Insurance won't cover it. I knocked the panels out from inside so it looked like the machine had been crushed. Realistically, I only had to reset the screws and it was good as new, but it looked mangled. Then I sent Melbourne Jerk the pics and complained about the damage. He said it was insured. I advised him the courier said it was insufficiently packaged and that it's not covered. I want a refund. Take this back. I knew he wouldn't take it back. It was totally useless to him. He said he didn't want it and he'll refund the freight. I said, nope, I can't do anything with a damaged machine. If he doesn't do anything, I'm filing a PayPal dispute under item not as described. He wasn't happy, played the victim, played on my sympathy, still not realizing who I was. Eventually, after offering me partial refunds and getting rejected, he relented and told me to keep it and he'd refund me in full. He must have realized that his greed wasn't worth it and it cost him nothing. So I had my machine back and I was happy this was all over with. Still mad at this guy's audacity, but yeah. That's not the end though, it gets better. Oh, does it get deliciously better. Someone at PayPal Business had finally read my complaint. Since I do a lot of work through PayPal under a business account, there's kind of a concierge service, although not really, kind of like a priority service. They actually went through my complaint, verified that his pickup docket was actually a year old and unrelated, and read the transcripts of him intending to keep the machine and get a refund. They refunded my money in full. Now I had my machine back and $3,000 of his money, and he couldn't do anything because he got caught for fraud. Can't dispute crap if you got caught being dishonest. He called me up, losing his crap. I laughed and said, "Sorry mate, it's karma. It's purely up to my goodwill to refund you." He pleaded and begged, swore a lot, pleaded more, and I said I'll think about it. Legally, he had no leg to stand on, but I have scruples. I donated it all to charity on his behalf. I sent him the receipt. He lost his crap even more. But now there were kits with food and clothes because of his jerkness. Girlfriend's mom wants her to pay for a $1,000 ticket to visit them for Christmas. She can't, so entitled mom loses it. Me and my girlfriend have been together for over a year and a half. I'm happy as can be with her, and she tells me constantly about how I feel like her only family. I never understood until this Christmas when I first heard of her mother. She never mentioned her mother before, but talks about her father a lot, who sadly passed away several years ago. Ever since, her life has been thrown upside down thanks to her mother basically wanting nothing to do with her. She even moved to be in her hometown in South Korea when girlfriend was only around 16. She's been raised by her aunt ever since, but just before I met her, her aunt, uncle, and cousins had basically abandoned her as well and moved in with her sister's girlfriend's mom in South Korea. So I can totally understand why she feels like she's worthless to her only remaining family after they all basically left her to be alone in America while they go and live their lives in Asia. Around Christmas, she had gotten a call from her mom. They missed her and wanted to spend the holidays with her. Girlfriend is overjoyed and all, but there was a catch. Entitled mom refused to fly out to America to be with her only daughter and expected her to buy a $1,000 ticket to come to Asia. Girlfriend was all for it, but because she wasn't getting a lot of business, she's a beautician, she didn't even have half of it. She begged her mom, her aunt, and anybody else in her family to help her get the money for the plane ticket, but nobody would help her, even a small amount. I wrote her a check. I wanted to give her $500, which would give her what she needed. She cried, but gave it back to me, telling me it's nothing I need to worry about. So she calls her mom to tell her the bad news. The conversation was in Korean, so she had to translate it for me. Girlfriend: I'm sorry, Mom. I can't come to Christmas. Entitled mom:
Why not?
I tried. I really did. But I just don't have enough money for a plane ticket.
But it's Christmas. We're your family. You didn't even try at all, did you?
But Mom,
Don't try to excuse yourself. You're still a lazy jerk.
Entitled mom hung up, and girlfriend broke down in tears. She wouldn't get out of her room for hours. All she did was cry in bed, trying to talk to her mom. Eventually, the crying stopped, and she let me in the room. She wouldn't say anything. She just showed me a picture on her phone. It was a text from her mom. I had to ask what it says, and she says, in a heartbroken tone, "It says I'm not her daughter anymore." My blood boiled. I couldn't even say anything. She was basically disowned by her own mother just because she couldn't go to Asia on her own budget. I don't really know what I'm supposed to do for her. This was a few days ago, around Christmas Eve, and she's still upset about it. Her mom, her aunt, nobody else in her family will text her back, and nothing I do will cheer her up. I've taken her out to several places, and she claims she has fun, but I can still see she's really sad and even lost without her mom. So it's time I be her man and text her mom. I grab my phone, get her mom's contact info from her phone, and use an English to Korean translator. I wrote out basically how I felt about this woman that I've never met, and it went something like this. You really don't know what you've done to your own daughter. You don't have any idea how much you've hurt her. If you really wanted to see her for the holiday, the least you could have done is help her get the money she needed for a ticket, even a small part of it. But no, she's an adult. She has to pay it all. Well, times have really changed since you were her age, and things aren't as easy for her as you might think. And you really don't know what you've lost, either. She's the best thing that's ever happened to you. If you felt the same way about her, maybe you'll understand just what being a mother even means. Never contact her again, or trust me, you'll meet me in person sooner than you think. Then I blocked her number. She got a text from her cousin saying entitled mom was absolutely appalled. But do I care? Of course not. And as for girlfriend, she saw what I wrote to her, and let's just say she feels a lot better, even though she still feels heartbroken now that her mom hates her, and me too most likely. Oh well, her loss. Next we've got the Karen downstairs. She blames my roommate and I for unknown noises when we're not home. This happened in 2009. And my memory of this is jarring as the Karen kind of caused a lot of stress when moving in. This lady caused problems from day one. This is before my roommate and I had a falling out. Cast. We've got me. We've got A, my roommate. We've got my friend neighbor. We've got Entitled Mom, Entitled Kids 1 and 2. We've got my mom, my dad, my sister, and her idiot ex. Roommate had a job at the time, so it wasn't so bad. He moved his stuff in 2 days after I did. Friendly neighbor helped me move in the kitchen and sofa. Honestly, it took 4 people. Day 1. Move-in couch with idiot ex, dad, myself, and friendly neighbor. We turn on the heat and get a knock on the door. Entitled Mom is demanding to know what we're doing. Friendly neighbor. We're moving in a sofa. Want to help?
No, keep it down. My babies are napping.
Me. Sorry, but we're just...
Don't care. Keep it down.
Roommate shows up around 4 p.m. and we finish. He is moving firewood into a spot on the porch since the apartment came with a fireplace. Get another knock. Entitled Mom again, demanding we make no noise. A few days pass and nothing from Entitled Mom downstairs until Sunday morning, day 5. Day 5, I am home alone. Roommate is working and I'm sitting at home reading. There's a knock on the door. I go check. It's Entitled Mom. She's glaring at me. Me. Can I help you?
Move out.
Why?
You and your husband are too loud.
I try not to laugh. Friendly neighbor is coming up behind her and asks what's going on. Me. I'm not moving out under your demand.
My husband is military. He can make you move.
Me. Love to meet him, but sorry. Leave us alone, please. Friendly neighbor enters and we shut the door. Roommate returns around 6 p.m. and we tell him what Entitled Mom wanted. He says we shouldn't pick on her. We're not. We settle in for dinner and get a knock on the door. This time it's apartment security with a noise complaint against us. Security. We had a complaint of a party. There is only 3 of us in the apartment and certainly no party. Roommate. Wait, I just got home and we didn't have on the stereo, TV, or anything. Security guy apologizes and says there must have been a mistake. Day 6. I'm at work and roommate is too. We don't get home till around 8 p.m. I enter to see a notice on our door about a sound complaint made around 3 p.m. We weren't home. I enter and see no break-in. I put my phone on the charger and call roommate who tells me he won't be home till 10 p.m. I go to take a shower. No sooner as I am changed for bed, knock on door. Roll my eyes, knowing who it is. Entitled Mom is glaring at me.
Can't you keep it down? My babies are...
sleeping, and so am I. I slam the door in her face, and sure enough, knocks again, and I decide to call security on her. Goes quiet for a few weeks. Then on day 20, she starts it up all over again. Day 20, roommate is home alone. It's his day off. I get a call that Entitled Mom called the police on him for ordering a pizza. No sooner did the pizza delivery guy leave, she called security. Roommate is upset and asks to come to the college where I work until I am off. I pay his parking and he stays at the cafeteria eating pizza and waiting until I'm off at 6 p.m. We return to see another sound complaint taped to our door. This one made at 5 p.m. Day 21. I go to leasing office and file a complaint on Entitled Mom, and she is already complaining against us. We have held no parties. We have had 2 or maybe 3 friends over for a Dungeons & Dragons game night. We are quiet for the most part. Entitled Mom starts calling us loud, rude, disrespectful, and all the other issues she has on us. This time, my dad, the co-signer, is with us, and we are floored as the Entitled Mom uses this.
My husband is in the military, and these 2 are...
And I am silently wishing she'd shut up. We stay quiet, but Entitled Mom starts her war. Day 22, 6 a.m. Day off for myself and roommate. I'm sleeping, and then I hear Entitled Mom and her kids yelling by our door. Friendly neighbor who lives across from us comes out to tell them to leave. I'm awake, getting ready for Taekwondo. I am out the door and staring at Entitled Mom and her kids, Entitled Kids 1 and 2. Entitled Kid 1.
Pig.
Entitled Kid 2.
fatty.
Friendly neighbor. Rodents! Entitled mom.
My kids are not.
Friendly neighbor. Could've fooled me. OP, you ready? We go to Taekwondo, and roommate is left to sleep as he had a rough night with a cold. We get back at 4 p.m., and roommate is outside our door talking to security. Entitled mom decided to yet again file a sound complaint. Roommate. I stepped out to get cold meds, and this guy is here with this. I see the paper and warning for eviction. By now, roommate and I were struggling, and the entitled mom was now trying harder to get rid of us. Roommate lost his job and was job hunting, and so was I. Day 23. I'm at an interview, and roommate is out with his girlfriend at a job fair. I return to find yet another noise complaint, this one at 2 p.m. Again, neither of us are at home. I go in, kick off my shoes, call my sister and her ex who came over. We are talking in the living room. Knock on door. Idiot ex answers, and entitled mom is fuming, demanding my sister and him leave or she'll call the cops. Idiot ex, who can be a jerk, actually asks what the heck that he and his wife can't visit his sister-in-law. Entitled mom.
My babies are sleeping, and you are making too much noise.
Sister. We're having coffee and tea. Entitled mom points at my tea kettle.
Noise. Get rid of it.
By now, ex is pissed off. He takes me into the hall where sister and entitled mom can't hear us. He then takes my phone and calls roommate. Entitled mom is fuming that she's a military wife and we are disrespecting her wishes. My sister, who is annoyed, decided to push her out the door.
You can't do this to me. I live here.
Me. You live below my apartment. Get out of my home. Went quiet for a few months. Day 40. Entitled mom and her rodents move out. But entitled mom decides to make one final complaint and nearly has roommate arrested. Day 40. Roommate and his girlfriend were at the apartment alone. Girlfriend calls me hysterical as I finish a final and head home. I see roommate standing by his car. Tires are slashed, and I'm shocked. He comes out, pointing to his tires. We had been fighting, but his eyes are wide. Roommate tells his girlfriend, "No way OP could do this. She had tests all day." His girlfriend, "You sure?" Me, "I don't carry a knife. I'll call dad." I call dad, who brings down 4 tires. Roommate and dad's car are the same brand, so spares are common. My dad is circling the car, and we are stunned, but find out entitled mom was seen around roommate's car that morning as she moved stuff to her van. Thank you, security cameras. Leasing office pressed charges, but because she decided to claim roommate attacked her, it was self-defense to prevent him from following her. The cops were called, and roommate, who only saw the woman a few times, didn't know who the heck this woman was. He may look like a tough guy, but this was weird. Note, all this was before roommate started drinking and being a jerk. After all this, our stress level was near bursting. We were relieved this lady left. Next we've got, I don't work for you, Karen, and I won't. I do a lot of work with lumber and sell the finished products to a select few clients, mostly smaller stores. This puts me into shops and markets fairly often, around 3 to 4 times a month, usually delivering the goods or picking up the trade-in stock/parts, depending on the arrangements. That said, I just got home from a drop-off and pickup routine, having scored a solid win with what I'll admit was a subpar retooled handicap-friendly working desk and cabinet pairing. In exchange, I got my hot little hands on ridiculously underpriced black walnut I have plans for, meaning I am having an awesome day. Cue the arrival of the Wonder Twins at my workshop door, pounding loud enough that I can hear it over my music. My shop, my rules, my pick of the tunes. I walk to the door, dressed in my flannel finery and fresh sawdust. Not happy with anyone, but the select few people who know not to knock if they can hear me playing music. I don't do walk-in customers, nor allow visitors inside of the shop. Karen.
Did you or did you not build my husband a set of pantry shelves last week?
Me. Probably. I know that I definitely delivered some to a seller. Yes, last month, 2 days before Thanksgiving.
Whatever. We demand a refund. Take them out immediately.
No, I don't do installation or removal. That's a not me deportment issue. You may leave now. Karen tries to jostle past me and get into the working area of the shop. Me. Okay, this is a language barrier issue. See yourself out and don't come back. Like, ever. Nobody is going to be allowed inside of the shop.
I demand a refund, and I will be getting my refund immediately. I'll call the police.
Have at it, cowgirl. I'll be pressing charges for what it's worth. I don't know you. Karen dials her phone, ranting and raving. I lock up the shop and monitor for the duration. Karen smugly.
You're gonna get arrested, you sanctimonious jerk.
Me. Sure. I'll be over here smoking a cigarette.
I forbid you to smoke.
Yeah, not going to happen. My property, my smoking rules. Kick sand, lady. I'm thinking. I smoke, she fumes, the police arrive and park in my driveway. This doesn't bother me, as I could give a rat's toochus what my neighbors think. Karen.
Arrest this man for fraud. He threatened me.
Me, pointing to the cameras installed on my shop exterior, shrugging. Cue the cops nodding to what she's ranting about. Me retrieving the laptop from the dining room table and bringing it out to them. Me. So, to help clear up some confusion, I can show you guys the video. Cops. Yes, please. Step over there, please. I oblige, they review the video. Karen suddenly changes the narrative. I'm her employee. Her husband is on his way to prove it. I stole stuff. What? I ask what it is that I purportedly stole, and for a description. None available. She's demanding access to the shop, saying she definitely saw it earlier in the day. Definitely close to her lunch break. I tell the cops to scroll back to around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Then she's changing the timeline to yesterday. Again, I ask for the specific time of day. Another change of narrative. Now, I've stolen cash from her. Yeah, my patience died with that one. Me. If she can't get or keep her story straight, allow me to do so with mine. I don't know her, her husband, or their many problems. I do know that she is trying to get into my shop, and I will be pressing charges for the attempts, plus trespassing, and being a jerk. Cops scribble their notes, take our names and details, escort her from the property, and remind her to not make it difficult on herself by returning. They make a reasonable request that nobody presses charges, which is cool with me. Karen required further discussion on the topic and similarly obliges. I close up the shop for the night, sit on my front porch and wait. Doesn't take long before her husband shows up, not demanding a darn thing, just issuing well-worn apologies for his wife's behavior. We shake hands, share a few laughs, and I do indicate that I have no interest in being a part of any future direct transactions with him. I do point out where he can get more of my finished product if he's so inclined, and off he goes to a place that I do not envy. I fired the client who gave out my address to Karen, and I stated that I would not be able to fulfill any future business with them. I don't mind the loss, and can probably get a better gig if I wait for it. Suffice to say, it's not been a good day so far, on the average. If you're reading this, Karen, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I hope that you fall on your keys and stub your toes on Legos in the dark. Next we've got Karen Can't Read. So this story takes place during the wonderful Christmas holiday week where all of the entitled Richards, Karens, etc. come out of their war-broken shells of defeat to attempt at claiming someone's soul. Unfortunately, I deal with my fair share of entitled souls almost daily as I work at an ISP, Internet Service Provider, as a tech support agent for the services we provide. I also work in the night crew, so when I finish my shift, it's already very late. So as you can guess, when I finish work, I can be quite drained. And on one merry night, I decided to drive to my local mall cart to get some shrimp for a shrimp dish I was going to make with a Christmas lunch for family the next day. When I entered the store, I went straight for shrimp, but had to go through a few aisles of other products of food and ended up coming across a cute old lady in one of those automated wheelchair deals. She ended up asking me for help to find some products as she could not read well. So I ended up assisting her for about 15 minutes through the aisles until she was content with what she had. She ended up thanking me and chatted with me for a couple more minutes before we separated and went about our ways. It took me a moment to remember what I was going for, But then, as I started to leave, my nerdy, oh crap senses tingled, and I felt it. Cast. We've got Karen. 5'4", dirty blonde, looks like she started smoking a long time ago. Wearing sunglasses at 11 p.m. at night, has knee-highs, heels, and some kind of fashionable skirt and jacket deal that she got from a Target sale of half price. Looks like she is a mid-40s mom trying to relive her bad high school days. Me. 6'4", wearing a black jacket and business casual clothing with my ID from work on my belt. Random employee. Intense tapping on my shoulder begins, followed by Karen attempting to spin me around by grabbing my arm, but I was so focused, I kinda just nudged and looked behind me. Me. What do you want? Karen hands me a shopping list.
Yes, I want you to grab a buggy and find this list of items.
Me. No. Drops list of items as I start to walk away. Karen, surprised Pikachu face.
Excuse me? You will take this list and do as you are told, you little jerk.
Me. First off, you are the literal jerk between us. Second off, I don't work here. Third off, I am fairly sure this store will not as Karen pointing at my ID on my belt.
Don't you lie to me, you worthless, pathetic jerk. I see your ID. I know you work here. Now you will do this right now, or I am going to contact your manager and corporate and have you fired.
Me. Karen, so you are smart enough to see that I have an ID, but not smart enough to read my ID? Grabs my ID, bringing it closer to her face each time. Can you read that?
How dare you assault me? I am going to call corporate and have you fired.
Me, resting jerk face, and walks away to the shrimp. Random employee comes to the aisle to speak to Karen and ask what is wrong. Now my hearing is a bit shot from being screamed at over time over the phone, so I only heard bits and pieces, but the gist of their conversation was her demanding I get fired, asking for corporate's number, and the employee more than likely telling her I do not work there. This proceeds to have me turn around at the end of the aisle. Me. Hey jerk. Yes, you. Take off your sunglasses. This isn't the 90s version of the Matrix. I still don't work here. Karen, red Pikachu face without the lighting. I proceed to walk away and grab the shrimp, purchase it, and leave the store. I haven't heard of the Karen yet, so I can only assume she could not read my ID that had my company name, etc. on it. Yes, it was risky and probably not the best thing to do, but at the end of the day, who cares? It was a great shrimp dish. Oh, and Happy New Year's to whoever reads this. How dare you give my baby a hot drink? Dear Lord, the holidays bring out the worst in people, I swear. Some backstory. I crash at my boyfriend's regularly when we are both off work. He is not a coffee drinker, while I'm practically addicted. I typically just head over to the gas station up the street and grab coffee when I stay with him because it's convenient. At this point in my day, I have had no coffee. Our cast. We've got Entitled Mom. We've got Boss Dad. We've got Clueless Kid, State Trooper, Coffee Barista, and me. On to the story. So I go into the store and put in my coffee order. This is one of those places that does the fancy made-to-order drinks, and I like mint lattes with an extra shot of espresso. While I'm waiting for my order, State Trooper comes in and starts talking with me. He used to work with my cousin and has known me for years. He's putting in his lunch order and grabbing a coffee for him and his partner while chatting with me. Neither one of us is paying attention to the counter or the numbers Coffee Barista is calling out. That's when Clueless Kid screams. It seems that while no one was looking, this little kid managed to grab my coffee off the counter, spilling it all over themselves and taking a drink. Of course, it burnt the living daylights out of their mouth, and she threw the offending drink at the wall, getting it all over the floor. State Trooper and I just sigh because we know how this is going to go. Entitled Mom panicked.
Oh, baby. What happened? Where are you hurt?
Clueless Kid just points at the cup. Entitled Mom turns on the barista.
How dare you give my child a hot drink when I'm not here? She's been hurt now because of you.
Barista. I apologize, ma'am. I placed the finished order on the counter for pickup. Your daughter must not have realized it was hot. Let's get her something cold to drink on the house and get this cleaned up. State Trooper and I have been helping keep people back from the spilled drink, and barista smiles at us as she rounds the corner. Her coworker is making a replacement drink while Entitled Mom continues to rant about how bad the place is and how hurt her baby could have been. Barista grabs a mop from the back, and I pick up the empty cup, looking at the tag on it. Mint latte, extra shot of espresso. Entitled Mom.
I don't know what kind of place serves hot milkshakes anyway.
Record scratch. Now everyone is looking at her. Me. Hot milkshakes?
Yes, I ordered a milkshake for her and she got burnt.
Me. Doesn't it make more sense that your daughter grabbed the wrong order and got someone's coffee instead?
My daughter cannot drink coffee. It's poison to kids her age and she knows it. She'd never touch the stuff.
State Trooper, looking at the cup in my hand. Ma'am, I believe this young lady is correct. Entitled Mom grabs Clueless Kid by the hair and shakes her right in front of a cop.
Coffee is bad for you. How many times must I tell you that?
Clueless Kid is crying. Barista is looking lost, guessing this wasn't part of her new hire training. State Trooper is stepping in to intervene. No managers in sight, and I'm wondering how my day went downhill so fast. This is about the same time that the door opens and in walks my boss from work. The look on his face says it all, and I realize that this lady looks so familiar because she's his ex-wife. Boss Dad. Let go of her hair.
But she drank coffee.
Boss Dad shaking his head. And? We've talked about this. Entitled Mom lets go of Clueless Kid, who runs and hides behind Dad. Entitled Mom.
She burnt her tongue, and these people were mean about it.
Boss Dad. So, you decided to attack her in front of a uniformed officer?
He's not a cop. He was talking to her.
Points to me. State Trooper takes out badge and shows it to Entitled Mom. I am very much a police officer. May I speak to you outside?
Whatever you have to say, you can say it right here.
Ma'am, I'm going to be placing you under arrest for assault. I would prefer to cuff you outside, where... And that was when Entitled Mom started throwing things at the trooper. Candy bars, display boxes, cups, whatever she could get her hands on. Trooper rolls his eyes and moved to cover. The rest of us are watching in horror, and Clueless Kid just starts laughing. Boss Dad looks at her and asks why she's laughing. Clueless Kid. Mommy always said bad things would happen if I drank coffee. I just never knew that they would happen to her. Some closing notes. My boss is a good father. His ex-wife is really crazy and somehow managed to get full custody in the divorce. He was there to pick Clueless Kid up to visit family for New Year's Eve. I chatted with Boss Dad, and we're cool. I don't spread the story around work, and he doesn't mention how ridiculous I looked in the boyfriend's clothes. State Trooper and his partner took Entitled Mom into custody. What'll happen next? I don't know. Clueless Kid got her milkshake, and I finally got my coffee. All on the house. Next we've got, a wild Karen tried to get me fired for not speaking Russian. In the summer, my friend had a part-time job at the beach as carousel/bounce house/trampoline ticket salesman, plus having to help kids on the carousels. You get it, it's something a teen can handle. They didn't have any uniforms and usually would just sit in the shade near the actual employee chair and table until someone asked to buy a ticket, usually wearing summer clothes and a fanny pack for money. Sometimes I and some others would hang out at her workplace since it was allowed and we were teens, so we were bored and had nowhere to be at. So basically, my friend was packing as they were closing up in the tent nearby, and I just happened to sit near the employee chair to make sure her backpack wasn't stolen. That's when it happened. This Russian lady in her 40s with blue eyeshadow on her eyes and leopard print leggings way too small for her stomach, squishing her waist and creating more rolls than there were, dragging her kid by the wrist and pushing her baby in a trolley, or whatever you call it in English, was waltzing towards me. I was absolutely terrified she was gonna make me babysit her kids while she goes in to jump on the trampoline or something. but I realized quickly that she would have destroyed the trampoline, so I had no idea why she was coming towards me. Then it hit me. Oh no, she thinks I work here. The lady said something to me in Russian and threw €2 on the table nearby, tapping her foot. I was sitting there, absolutely confused, trying to mimic something as I couldn't remember my Russian from 6th grade, sitting on the bench next to the worker's chair. Then I realized how to end this madness. I was going to say the only thing I can in Russian, which means I don't understand Russian. Granted, I've been taught Russian from 6th grade, so I more or less so understand some words in simple sentences and can guess the meaning easily. I just can't speak it. She replied with something along the lines of,
How can you say that without knowing Russian? You're lying.
Then she went on a huge rant of what I'm guessing, judging by how many times she said words like school, teach, Estonia, rude to Russians, how Estonians are rude to Russians and should learn Russian instead of being jerks and speaking their own language in their own country. She was yelling her guts out until I understood a complete sentence, which meant,
I want to speak to the manager. You'll be fired.
Then I remembered how to say, I don't work, so I said it, but her kid cut me off with his crying and her other kid kept demanding the bounce house. Then she was trying to comfort her kid and got quiet. This lady had ruined my day. So instead of telling her that I don't work here during the quiet time, I waited for her kid to calm down. I promised myself I wouldn't be such a pushover and stood up, being taller than her by surprise. I was 15 and 5'9", and said in the loudest voice possible, exactly when her kid had calmed down, I don't work. I know how hard taking care of a kid can be, so I purposefully yelled so she'd have to console her kid again. I felt like a jerk, but I was tired of being a pushover. Kid started bawling. Her other kid trying to run towards the bounce house and trying to make mom take him there. She got so angry that she was actually red, screaming something, and literally dropped her kid into the sand, mentioning manager and that I should
just do my job and not fool around
multiple times, and I was scared that this lady was going to kick my butt from the rage. I may be a jerk, but I felt bad for her baby and rushed past that lady and picked it up, which infuriated the mother even more, then put it in the trolley. No one should have a mom like that, I thought. Eventually, my friend's boss, who can speak Russian, asked what was going on. I said that this lady thinks I work here. The lady started throwing a literal tantrum and crying about something. She was speaking fast and in Russian, trying so hard to be dramatic that the kid escaped into the bounce house, which I wasn't even going to try and stop because again, I don't work there. He then told her simply in Russian, she doesn't work here and we're closing up anyway. Also, get your kid off there. The lady gets this look on her face that she's going to sue me and that no one listens to her, but leaves and calls her bratty-seeming kid over, who had been interrupting this entire time by demanding going to the bounce house and yelling for her mom. I was almost crying. I thanked my friend's boss. Then he said, oh, I don't work here either. I was just bored and watched the show from the bench near the swings. You should probably learn Russian. She said some pretty mean things about you. Then proceeded to translate to me what she had said to the manager. Apparently, she said that I threw her kid in the sand, denied them of service because of where they're from, and she's a single mom and they should give my paycheck to her. How I mocked her and how we should all speak Russian. I thanked him again and he left to go get some ice cream. Then my friend finally came back and we started rolling up the carpets and deflating the bounce house, etc. After she was off duty, I couldn't wait to tell her the story. But she was busy telling me some of her issues, so it wasn't the right time. I thought I'd tell her some other day, and it's been half a year, and to this day, nobody knows this. So I'm happy to share it. Next we've got, fire me for talking about unionizing? I'll spill all your dirty secrets. I used to work for a plasma collection center back from 2008 to 2010. Even though I was a certified phlebotomist, I was placed up in reception and I slowly worked my way up to senior receptionist and trainer. I was also training for quality control and was known for keeping detailed notes of issues that were in need of fixing or training, which I would forward on to management. Some of the things I'd keep track of were violations of FDA and GHA, German health authority since we were run by a German/Swiss company, as well as OSHA issues. Because I wasn't seeing anything being done, I eventually stopped reporting the issues to avoid being labeled a troublemaker and just kept time/date info, and if I could, I got pictures with date stamps just to cover my own butt in case something bad went down. Fast forward to June of 2010, and I was talking with one of my coworkers about the proposed cuts to benefits and the high turnover rate at our center. They were complaining to me about being afraid to call in sick because others had been fired for it, and I mentioned that they were putting donors in danger by us being sick when we weren't allowed to wear face masks unless we were in the back of the donor area, and even then it was the clear face shields to prevent getting hit if someone leaked on us. Without thinking about it, I talked about how unions protected against this sort of thing in other medical fields, and how that might be something we should consider to help protect us. The coworker got weirdly quiet, but I figured it was because I was talking about a subject most people don't like talking about. Nothing really happened until about August when another coworker grabbed my ponytail while I was working with a donor and yanked down on it, jerking my head back. I had informed everyone I worked with to never touch my hair because it was a trauma trigger for me, and this coworker knew I would wind up in panic mode from this. She had seen it before when a donor touched my hair, so this was deliberate. I remember telling her to not do that again, or I would make her get away. She, of course, walked up and yanked my hair even harder, and I hit her. The supervisors went into damage control mode as I fled the area, still in a panic response, and one of them cornered me and demanded I write down what happened because I had assaulted someone on the property. I wrote my side, as well as told them to check security footage since the camera was aimed right at the booth I was working at and had clear views of the events. Turned out, everyone else told an entirely different and creepily similar story than what I told, and the footage couldn't be found even though less than half an hour had passed. I was fired less than an hour later and escorted off the premises after being given 5 minutes to clear out my locker and get my belongings. So, on to the revenge, which was two-pronged. My partner was there on that day and saw what happened and tried to offer to write up what he saw, but was denied. So the next time he went in, it wound up being screened by the coworker who yanked my hair, who didn't even get a write-up, and asked her loudly enough that the whole reception area could hear. "So, how's those 50 shekels of silver, Judas? Was it worth it?" Which left her in tears, and another person had to finish screening him. He wound up being banned for 6 months for his attitude, but he claims it was more than worth it. While this was going on, I had been reaching out to the various organizations and departments that oversaw plasma donation and collection, the FDA, OSHA, CDC, GHA, and the like. I informed them of the fact that we always clean prior to an inspection, but we didn't keep things that clean day to day, and suggested a surprise inspection should be in order. I also handed over copies of everything I'd collected and tried to report, but always got shut down. I learned a few months later that all of the management and several of the other techs and supervisors were all suddenly reassigned, and the FDA, GHA, and OSHA had all slammed fines on the center for violations dating back almost the whole time I worked there. Next we've got Entitled Mom Tries It with not 1, not 2, but 3 members of staff. So, tiny bit of background. I've been working at a popular chain store. You might be able to figure it out later in the story. For a few weeks over the Christmas period as a temp, along with a few others. I've worked retail before, so am familiar with tricky customers. But for many of the other temps, it's their first job and aren't sure of what to do when someone's being difficult. On this particular day, we aren't that busy, so I'm stocking up the shelves while my colleagues help customers and do other tasks. A friend of mine, who is shy, quiet, and very polite, is helping one customer on the other side of the shelves I'm stocking. I'm not really listening in, but I always keep an ear out when working in case someone needs anything. Anyway, I overhear that this customer sounds annoyed that someone isn't working that day, but my friend apologizes and says she'll help her instead. The customer says she usually gets helped by a lady with a turban, but nobody working with us wears any religious headdress. She was talking about a colleague who'd recently left for a new job who wore a headband. I found out quickly why this regular customer always had someone, a manager, rush up and sort her out as quickly as possible when she came in. She picks out 2 bath bombs she wants to buy, but says she doesn't want to hold them while looking around the rest of the shop. We have bags to put them in, so it wasn't like she didn't want dust on her hands. She just didn't want to hold the items. My friend recommends a basket, even suggests that she hold the basket for the customer. But the customer refuses and says she wants her items to be kept behind the till, specifying that this would be the case with every product she picked out. My friend says we can't do that because there really isn't enough space. She was right. They were sorting out some products into sample pots, so the closed till space was being used. She does say that she could put just those 2 bath bombs behind the till if she doesn't mind her name being written on the bags, just to stop anyone from putting them back on the shelves. The customer is shocked and says that under no circumstances will she want the bags written on. I don't know why. The customer keeps insisting they be put behind under her instructions, but stops after a minute and angrily holds them herself. My friend continues showing her around the shop, showing her the items she wanted and showing her how they worked, and the customer wants 2 pots of one type of lotion, but in the small size. We usually do them in a small and large pot, but we had sold out of the small ones. At this point, I was stalking right next to them and overheard that she wanted 2 small pots of the same thing, which was weird as she wanted both for herself and it worked out more expensive. She insisted my friend go and check the back room to see if they have smaller sizes. I overhear this. Me. Oh, I'm sorry, but I've been stalking today and we don't have any of the smaller sizes. We could get you a sample if you'd like.
No, I've used it before.
She sounds a little rude to me, but I brush it off. She wasn't as rude to me as she was to my friend, but with the amount of dark makeup I wear, the customers aren't that quick to be rude. She goes on to want another product that we definitely know isn't there, as it's one of our most popular. So in the Christmas sales, we completely ran out. My friend, knowing this, says that it's all sold out and that there might still be some online. Customer.
Don't play that card with me. I went to
Insert another store location.
and they had loads of them. You're just trying to not do your job. Go out and check.
My friend is surprised and looks confused at how to respond, looking at me. I just tilted my head to the back and shrugged, our symbol of, just pretend, I guess. So she goes to do just that. I thought about saying something to the customer, but thought against it as I didn't want to cause anything. I just told myself that I'd tell my friend afterwards that she did nothing wrong and that the customer was just rude. My friend comes back after a moment and the customer immediately goes into a very ominous mode, smiling and very sweetly saying something along the lines of,
I've had it up to here with you lying to me. I know you have 3 stock rooms back there, and in that time, you couldn't have checked one of them. Go and get me my stuff, or I will get you fired.
This was not only sinister, but stupid, as we have one very small stock room. My friend is half stuttering now and telling this woman that they really don't have it, and that she should try the other store. I'm about to step in at this point as my friend is getting upset, but the customer demands to see a manager just as I'm putting my boxes on the floor. My friend dashes to get a manager, and just like that, the customer turns to me. Customer, holding out the bath bombs and sounding innocent.
Can you put these behind the till for me?
Me, having heard the conversation before. Sure, I'll write your name on them for you. She goes to restart the argument again, but I shut her down. Look, I'm sorry, but I can either get you a basket or write your name on them. We really shouldn't put things behind the till at all. But as it's quiet, I can make an exception. But I will have to write your name on them, because if not, someone else will put them back thinking they've been misplaced. Can I take your name?
But the other woman always let me do it my way.
She doesn't work here anymore. I'm here right now, and this is what I'm told to do. I can take your name if you want.
Fine.
She genuinely pouts this. She gives me her name and tells me very specifically to write it as small as possible in pencil. I don't know why it matters so much, as the bags are just to stop the products from being damaged. At this point, I leave and a manager comes over. As I'm at the till, this woman starts yelling at our manager, who takes none of her BS. about how rude her employees are and how she needs to be a better manager. She even demands a free product as we were wasting her time. The manager declines, and meanwhile I write her name in huge letters across both bags and dark black Sharpie. You know, just in case someone tries to put it back on the shelf. Just pay your babysitter. I just got money out of the ATM to pay our babysitter for tonight, and it reminded me of a story from back in the archives. Now, I'm one of 5 kids in my family. My sister, the second youngest of the lot of us, would babysit for extra money when she was younger. She had good clients that paid on time and bad clients that were always short on money and forgot to bring the right amount or conveniently forgot her rate. My sister got smart pretty quick, but those first few babysitting gigs showed her how crappy people can be. So my brothers and I had just been stiffed on payment for picking apples, and we were loudly complaining about it out in the barn. My sister hears us and joins in with her story. Apparently, one family owes her close to $200 in back pay. We all assume she's talking about one of the bad families and ask why she'd keep working for them if they don't pay up. But no, it's upstanding members of our community, the Smiths. Names changed to protect the guilty. Sister had been watching their hellions in town after school for almost a month, then riding her bike / getting the bus home, and they never seemed to have the full amount. But because they're a good family that goes to our church, she's been letting it slide and agreeing to more work with them with the promise that next time they'll have the full amount. Yeah, that never happens. I didn't know what the sunk cost fallacy was at the time, but that is what was going on here. Well, we're full of righteous indignation, having just been shorted ourselves, and we have a car, so we come up with a plan. My sister is scheduled to babysit for them for that upcoming Friday night after school until 10 p.m. This was unusual because they were strictly after school up until now, so we figured that it must be for something important. Part of the deal was that they would bring my sister home afterwards, but given the track record of shoddy promises, we didn't want to take this chance. My older brother stays at a friend's place so he can get to work in the morning, and my younger brother, sister, and I take the car to school. After school, we drive around to the Smiths. Sister jumps out, and we wait at the end of the driveway. She takes in her diary / ledger thing and tells the Smiths that she's sorry, but they are about $200 in arrears, and she can't babysit for them tonight until they're paid up in full. They aren't happy about it, but she sticks to her guns and walks out of the house. Mrs. Smith follows her outside and tells her that it's too late to back out of their agreement because they have a big night tonight. Mr. Smith is getting some kind of award, and they need a babysitter. She can't believe my sister isn't acting like a good Christian by demanding all this money. Now, my brother has slept through more church than any person I know. I have no idea where he came up with this, but he belts out Romans 13:7, which is basically, pay what you owe. Mrs. Smith is doing that goldfish thing, where your mouth opens, but nothing comes out. I'm laughing. My sister is just giving her resting jerk face, and my brother is hitting her with more Bible verses about paying up. I remember the render to Caesar one, but I've forgotten the rest. Sorry. She goes back inside, and Mr. Smith comes out. He offers my sister some of the money that they owe and promises that they'll have the rest after his event that they have to leave for very soon. My sister takes the money, updates the diary / ledger, and says that we'll come back when he has the rest of the money. And that due to their track record, she would need tonight's money in advance. Mr. Smith turns to do the goldfish thing. We drive off and get some shakes at a place in town and drive back over 30 minutes later. We're met by 2 frantic Smiths that have the money ready to go. They hand it over. Sister turns off her resting jerk face and heads into the house. The Smiths, looking a bit worse for wear, dart off to their car and peel out in the drive like their lives depend on it. Aftermath. The Smiths did try and tell my parents that we were shakedown artists. My parents told them that they couldn't expect slave labor, but if the relationship was now soured, my sister wouldn't work for them anymore, and they could find a new sitter. This was about the time Bookface was starting to get big. Between my sister telling the other sitters about her experience and a book-faced group that named and shamed locals that didn't pay or shorted their sitters, it was a very interesting few years for the Smiths and some other families in our small town. Would you keep babysitting if the family wasn't paying you? If so, for how long? Let me know in the comments below. Next we've got Entitled Mom threatens to call the cops on us for having legal fireworks. I never expected to run into an entitled mom, but this happened yesterday, 4 hours ago. Happy New Year. Our cast. We've got Entitled Mom, Crazy Kid, my friend, and me. So this evening at around 11 p.m., me and my friend were lighting fireworks at a grass field, so no one would be bothered by us. We were putting Thunder Kings upside down in their holders so they would explode on the ground instead of in the air, very loudly. There also was another kid in the grass field. He looked around 15. This is Crazy Kid, throwing around small white bags that would explode ridiculously hard. When we arrived at the grass field, we heard it the first time and we jumped. That's how loud it was. It was also clearly illegal. So we started setting off Thunder Kings, and Crazy Kid just starts throwing around those white bags. We decided to leave when one eventually landed around 5 meters away from us, which gave us a serious beep in our ears. We were walking back to my place, and Crazy Kid bikes past us, deliberately throwing another white bag literally a few meters away from us. We got away from it before it exploded, and we started shouting at the kid. He just biked away quickly. Me and my friend were really mad and kept walking to my place. Around 5 minutes later, we see Crazy Kid waiting for us on the sidewalk together with his mom, Entitled Mom. We were still so angry at him, so we walked up to him, and this is the conversation that followed. My friend: "Hey, don't ever throw fireworks at us again. Are you crazy?" Entitled Mom:
Don't talk to him like that. He's my son. He would never do that to someone.
Me: "He threw fireworks right at us, and they're probably illegal as well." Crazy Kid:
"I didn't do that. Go away, stupid little kids."
I'm almost 17, and my friend is 16.
My son doesn't have illegal fireworks and would never try to hurt someone. He's a lovely kid. Leave him alone.
Me: "If he has no illegal fireworks, then what's in his bag?"
That's none of your business. Go away, or I'm calling the police.
My friend: "What the heck are you calling the police for?"
Don't talk that way in front of my kid.
Me: "Come on, let's just go."
Oh, so now you're scared.
Me: "What do you mean?"
Well, I said I would call the police, and you suddenly decide to leave. I want to bet you are the persons that have illegal fireworks, and you're trying to blame my son for it.
Crazy Kid:
"I think so too. They were lighting fireworks that were very loud."
At this point, my friend looked at me with a face that basically screamed, "Are you serious?" Me: "That's legal stuff."
No, it's not. It's illegal. My son knows everything about fireworks, and he says they are illegal, so they must be.
My friend: "You are crazy."
I'm going to call the police on you for having illegal fireworks. Stay right there.
Go ahead. We just waited to see how far she was going to go. Nothing to worry about if she did call the police, since the fireworks we had were illegal. She takes out her phone, and then Crazy Kid whispers something to her. Then they turned around to us.
Okay, I am a reasonable person.
She actually said that.
So, if you give me those fireworks you have, I'm not calling the police on you. Otherwise, I will call them.
Me: "No way. Let's go." We were walking away from Entitled Mom and Crazy Kid, and after we walked away from them like 10 meters, we heard Entitled Mom saying things like,
Is this the police?
and talking about how there were kids with illegal fireworks and stuff like that. She wasn't very convincing. She was clearly faking the phone call, probably to make us change our minds. My friend in a mocking voice:
Oh no, we should run before the cops come here.
We started laughing at Entitled Mom, and she wasn't happy about that.
Give me those fireworks now, or I'm really calling the police.
My friend, no, go away. We started walking away again, and of course, Entitled Mom didn't call the police. She just kept yelling at us, but we ignored it. We went to my place where we told what happened, and everyone laughed about the Entitled Mom fake calling the police. Next we've got Entitled Parent calls a call center. So I decided to take 6 months off and get a job just while thinking and browsing my options. I couldn't get a job on my own, so my mother helped me get one in a family friend-owned call center. Since I was bilingual, I got a decently nice salary, and instead of dealing with people from my country, all my customers were from the United States, and all calls were in English. Lucky me, I was always told my English was decent and I did not have an accent. Okay, so I worked for a banking company in their credit card department. My department was the first line, and we had to deal with multiple procedures, some easy, some a mess. One of the procedures we had to deal with a lot was resetting people's passwords to access the online banking system. Now, the bank has different security requirements for different processes. The reset password was a high-risk procedure, and only the owner of the card is allowed to request it. Also, we needed to complete a verification using a security code sent to the owner's phone to verify their identity. So I was just at my desk in between calls, and a new call comes in. We've got me, and we've got Entitled Mom. Me. Thanks for calling Bank Credit Card Department. This is OP speaking. How may I help you today?
Hi, yes. I need to get into my account, but I can't seem to remember the password. Can you help me?
Of course. Could you please provide me with your card number?
Yes. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Okay. Thanks. Please give me a moment while the system pulls up your card, and may I have your name, please?
Yes, it's Mrs. Karen, entitled.
I check my screen, and I see the card is under a Mr. John Good. Fake name, obviously. Now, in training, they remind us a lot of the importance of security, and a big red flag is someone trying to pass off as someone else. Me. Ma'am, I am very sorry, but your name is not the one in my system. Can you please confirm the card number again? Entitled Mom getting annoyed.
Yes, it's this.
Me. I am very sorry, ma'am, but this card is not in your name. Are you positive this card is yours?
No, it's not mine. It's my son's.
Said this very slowly to me, as if I was stupid. Ah, I see, ma'am. Unfortunately, the password reset needs to be done with the card owner on the line.
What? But I am his mother. I need to have access to his bank information.
I am terribly sorry, ma'am, but per bank policy, I can't give you your son's password or access to his account unless he calls in to authorize it. Will there be anything else I can help you with today?
Forget you, you jerk. I demand you let me in his account right this instant.
Now, by this point, I was used to dealing with some jerks on the job, and this wasn't even the worst. Me. Ma'am, this is a professional call. I'm giving you your first warning. If this behavior continues, I will be terminating this call.
You stupid jerk! Fine. In that case, I demand you give me all his card movements in the last month.
Now, some people add a secondary person on the card that does have access to this information, but Entitled Mom was not in there either. Me. Once again, ma'am, since you are not in the account, not even as an authorized user, I can't provide you with that information. I advise you to contact your son and tell him to call us to authorize us to provide you with information.
Forget you, you jerk! I will be contacting my lawyer and getting you fired for this.
And she hung up. Wow, I thought to myself, poor guy. I hope his mom at least treats him better than me. Next we've got Salty Lady tries taking my salt when she thinks I work for Safeway. Last week, I finally made up my mind to dress nice. Brown khakis and button-up shirt. Hair was a little unruly, but I managed to get it mostly under wraps. I'm also able to drive again after 5 weeks this far out of surgery, So that's nice, and drove the 20 minutes to town to spend a Safeway gift card I got for Christmas. I go in and I had this compulsion for something salty, but without being soft. My taste buds wouldn't accept chips, crackers, or anything else that turns into mush. Then I see it. Heavenly Choir. Beef jerky. This stuff is so stupidly overpriced. $15 for a 230-gram bag? But I'm not spending out-of-pocket money, so it's all good. What else was I really going to use it on? I take 3 packages since the gift card was for $50, and I am in this almost primal sense of hunger, so I'm ignoring the world outside of this jerky. I look down, and I apparently grabbed a flavor variety. Ew. No, original or not at all. I put them back and start getting antsy. At this point, I'm basically tidying up the whole darn section, which is mismatched all to heck and back. If it's even hung up in the first place, and I just wanted to make it easier for me to find what I wanted. By the time I get it sorted and do find what I wanted and stand back up, I accidentally back up into a very irate lady. I jump ahead a little. Sorry, just a little ridiculous trying to get what a guy's gotta eat, eh? Yeah, no. She immediately blasts back.
Are you stoned on the job just because it's legal now? Trying to get your attention for 5 minutes now, but you ignored me because you have the munchies.
Then she's hollering to anyone who might overhear her that she needs the manager and rips my beef jerky out of my hands, continuing to berate me. I'm just more in shock at this moment, but I finally settle on a, "Okay, stupid, let's see where you take this," expression on my face. Not the manager, but one of the higher-ups, regardless, comes power walking down the aisle, and before she can even finish asking what the problem is, she's already being interrupted by Karen calling for me to be fired on the job, and generally being, a Karen. This supervisor is totally befuddled by what she's hearing and trying to make sense of it, and I finally tell Karen to shut up for 10 seconds. If you're even capable of being an adult that long. I tell her, "Look, long story short, I'm buying food, she thinks I'm an employee here, and I try to be dramatic and yank my jerky back, but she's got a death grip on it. And she's being a colossal entitled jerk who won't let me have the jerky I wanted to buy and had to root around for like an idiot." There were interjections while I told the employee this, but I'm not going to type out every interruption for the sake of reading comprehension. "Ma'am, give him the food."
Why? So he can take it in the back and share it with your other employees?
"He doesn't work here. Just because he's wearing sweatpants and a dirty t-shirt doesn't mean he works for us." Ah, yeah. I totally wasn't wearing that before I decided to clean up before leaving. Yeah.
Don't cover for him. He was putting everything away on that shelf.
You said he was looking for that stuff in your hands.
Yeah, I know. Idiot.
Which one is it then? Ah, never mind. I'm going to ask you to leave. You're making a scene and harassing other shoppers. Get out.
You fire him right now.
How Security! Karen, embarrassed, practically runs out of the store. I wish she tried and tripped. She was in heels. I am being petty with this thought, but I genuinely wish she had. She was still clenching my jerky when she tried leaving. At that point, when security grabbed her, they had to phone the police and added shoplifting to her other charges. I mean, I knew she'd be out in a few hours because we have a sickening revolving door criminal system in Canada for anything that isn't violent or white collar. But it still felt nice when she saw that I saw her in cuffs. No free jerky, no discount, and nobody even apologized I had to go through that with her. I expected as such, but I'm kinda mad now that I can't even look at the stuff without wanting to run to the bathroom again, being sick, and all preventing me from enjoying the fruits of my ordeal. Next we've got Ring Me Up or Else. So a few years back, I worked for a company that would sell and repair retail and bank equipment. This ranged from ATMs to office printers. Our big retail items were cash registers and self-checkouts. As a technician, I would ride out to the store that opened a support ticket and never really had an offer or even a logo. Our uniform was really just a nice polo, khaki pants, and black boots. One of our biggest customers on the retail side was a superstore known for blue uniforms. I would spend entire days in these stores just working on cash registers. I also do my best to avoid wearing the usual colors for most store uniforms and opt for a black polo. I cannot count how many times people would approach me while I would be testing scanners and demand I ring up their stuff. One particular day, I needed a replacement motherboard on a register and had the parts laid on the belt next to me as I dusted things off and removed the case. An older couple who had been waiting in line sees me and decides that I am somehow about to open. The husband starts to shove my parts forward so he could begin stacking their stuff on the belt. Looking up, I kindly mentioned to the couple that, "I'm sorry, sir, this register isn't open," and gestured to all of the other pieces in front of me. His wife started to sigh.
We can see that, but you'll be done soon, so we can wait.
All while the husband is still stacking product on the belt. "No, I'm sorry, ma'am. I am repairing the register. I don't work for the store. I'm just a repairman." She still wasn't convinced, but I could see the husband at least realized that I wasn't in the usual employee uniform. The wife eventually took the hint after I repeated myself and dusted my shirt off to point it out further.
Well, if you can fix it, you can ring us up anyway. It's not like it's rocket science.
I'm trying to not get snarky with this couple, but I live for passive-aggressive softball. The thrill of pointing out someone's stupidity when they've given me an attitude is a glorious high. The husband, not wanting to lose his face despite knowing that I was indeed a repairman and not a cashier, starts to get grumpy.
Why can't this store open more than 2 registers?
The wife started again.
Just hurry up and ring up our things.
I sigh and think some people are visual learners, so I remove my parts from the belt and place them at my feet, not back into their case. This leaves a noticeable emptiness in the station as all that is left is dangling cables and the scanner. I proceed to grab the first item and try and scan it, and of course, no beeps sound and nothing happens. Now with my best customer service face. "I'm sorry, it doesn't look like the register is working." Not happy with my answer, they demanded I move them to another register. Sadly for them, I had 2 other tickets for that store, and the adjacent register needed a hand scanner. I walked over to the register with the item I had used before and keyed in the store's training mode, which lets me scan things as a mock purchase. Looks like a real transaction. I proceeded to use the scanner, and a sad, dying beep comes from it. Nothing was ringing up with it. The husband, now getting more furious, demands I use the scale scanner and try again. Seeing the opportunity to hit this one out of the park, I changed the quantity to 100 and scanned the item, a can of veggies, and the price appears on the little flagpole. The husband starts yelling again, and the wife moans.
None of the registers work.
Showing mild concern, I say, "I'm sorry, it looks like you have to wait in line for another cashier." At this point, the cashiers around me had witnessed the show and were trying not to laugh as they rang everyone else up. The lines had started to back up a bit more, and a manager opened one more lane. Unfortunately for my couple here, they didn't get to it in time to be first. While they waited, I replaced the hand scanner and did a few test purchases which worked just fine. So now I go back to my motherboard replacement, which the couple can now see the lane from behind us and how my tool bag and all the parts were settled in. They didn't go to the manager, thankfully. Not that it would have done much, as the store loved me. However, I could hear them complain to the cashier about the broken lanes, to which the cashier replied by singing my praises. I could see their faces turn red, and then they left. That job had so many moments like this where it baffled me how people couldn't put clues together to see pieces scattered about. The ATM side was just as bad, especially drive-through/outdoor units. Can't count how many times I've been boxed in with angry customers waiting on me to move as I work. I could have huge dispenser units on the ground next to me, and they still wouldn't take the hint it was broken, eventually storming off and yelling at me. Entitled brother fakes illness to milk my parents of their retirement savings. So I grew up in a middle-class family in a low-income area. My dad built his dream house there, and even though they could afford to move, they never wanted to. My parents had a tendency to spoil my older brother far more than us, mostly because I was the quiet one who never spoke up. This resulted in my brother getting his way more often than me. Nothing blatant, but it was enough to give him an entitlement complex a mile wide. When my brother was a teenager, he struggled with some serious mental illnesses. These were absolutely legitimate, and crippled his ability to function for several years. My parents were obviously very concerned for him, and so they willingly paid top dollar for the best psychiatrist and psychologist that they could find to help him. By the time I was ready to go to a different city to start university, my brother was at a stage where he was ready to go as well. It was decided that he would go to a university as the same city as me, and we would live together. My parents offered to pay for our rent all the way through university, so us flatting together obviously made a lot of financial sense for them. We would have to pay for everything else out of our student loans. Everything was set. We had found a good student flat, settled in, etc. He had a new care team in the new city. Awesome. Unfortunately, my brother had an episode on his first day that resulted in him not going to class. This meant he was removed from his program, compulsory first day, with the option of starting again in the second semester. Now, the obvious, logical, and sensible thing to do in that situation is for my brother to go home while I found a roommate to take the spare bedroom and he could move back up and try again next semester. My brother didn't like that idea. You see, he always hated living at home. He would always whine about how old our house was or how poor our neighborhood looked. Our neighborhood was lovely, great sense of community, and I always loved it there. But he felt that he deserved better. Next thing we knew, his new psychologist has written a letter to my parents stating that it would be a good idea to allow him to stay living in the new city, to allow him to acclimate to his surroundings. My parents followed this advice and allowed him to stay. They replaced his weekly loan amount with an allowance of the same value and thought everything would move forward from there. This worked for a few weeks, but my brother started to hound my parents for more money. You see, he wasn't a student, so in his mind, why should he have to live like a student? No instant noodles and TV dinners for him. He wanted steak and lamb for dinner. He wanted to go to nice restaurants with his friends and go shopping whenever he felt like it. He wanted a new iPhone and a new MacBook because his was slow, etc. My parents eventually gave in and doubled his allowance. Second semester rolls around and my brother hasn't even bothered enrolling. My parents weren't happy, but his psychologist writes him another letter and so it continues. Fast forward 3 years, and I'm graduating with a job offer from my university in my field. The apartment is nice and convenient to my new job, so I continue to live there, only now I pay for my half of the rent and utilities. My brother is still not working or studying, and his allowance is now almost equal to my salary. Every time my parents try to force him home, his psychologist writes another letter, and my parents' trust in my brother's care team was high. They did save his life after all. By this point, my parents are just paying for his half of the utilities directly on top of his allowance. I suggested to my parents to get a second medical opinion, as he had been seeing this psychologist almost weekly for 3 years with no improvement, but my brother flat out refuses. He likes her. She speaks to his soul, whatever that means. About a year and a half after I graduate, our landlord decides to sell the apartment and the new owners want to live there. Normal thing that happens, and I'm not bothered by this. I wanted to take the opportunity to get my own place. I have a serious girlfriend whom I want to eventually marry, so would like my own space that she could one day move into, and just generally move on with my adult life. But my parents don't want my brother living on his own just yet, and again, he is refusing to come home. They beg me to stay for just 1 more year while they figure out an arrangement for him. We got rather short notice to move, so I can understand this, and 1 more year won't matter too much to me. So apartment hunting we go. My brother goes fully off the entitlement deep end. He will only view apartments well outside of our price range. Anything within budget is either too old or too small or too dark or too ugly. He wants a new modern apartment in an expensive suburb in the heart of the city. His psychologist writes another letter outlining the importance of a comfortable environment for him. My parents cave once again and agree to rent his dream apartment for us, but I can't afford my half of the new rent. They compromise with me, and I only have to pay the same rent as I was before, which is barely 1/3 of the rent at the new place, mind you. It's a beautiful apartment, so I was okay with the deal, even though I wasn't happy. Unfortunately, my brother is now used to getting everything he wants or needs. He starts asking me to pay for more and more of the groceries. Idiot me, thinking that mom and dad had cut down on his allowance now that the rent is so expensive, agreed to take up some of the slack. Big mistake. They were still giving him the same amount. He just wanted more. He starts asking me for more and more things and then whines to mom when I don't give it to him. My parents cave over and over again and get him whatever he wants. New computer, new MacBook, new iPhone, heck, even a car. Up until this point, my parents could afford all of this and somehow still save well for their retirement. My mom was completely honest with me about their finances, as when the time came, the power of attorney would transfer to me, so she wanted me to know where they stood. They were on track for a long, comfortable retirement, but then my dad unfortunately lost his job through very unusual circumstances. His company just disappeared, and his boss left the country. This messed my dad up for quite a while, and he decided it was time to kick back and enjoy an early retirement. He was only 2 years short of his retirement age anyway. My brother was furious. He would rage about how dad had betrayed him for not continuing to work to fund his lifestyle. He would regularly yell at my mom over the phone, saying that he expects them to continue to support him because he deserves the security of the lifestyle he has earned. I laughed my butt off at that line, which turned into another long fight, but was totally worth it. I knew that without dad's income, my parents couldn't afford the rent where we lived, so I decided to force the issue and moved into my own place. I had hoped that this would result in my brother moving as well, but alas, his psychologist wrote him another letter and he continued to live there. I moved on with my life, got married, went back to university, bought a house, grown-up stuff. 5 years go by, and I have virtually no contact with my brother. I'm visiting my parents one day, and when I take them out for lunch, my mom breaks down crying because she can't pay. It turns out that my brother had been blackmailing my parents to continue to support him, saying that if they didn't, he'd end up homeless and it would be their fault, etc. He still had the full support of his medical team, and my parents didn't know what to do. He had burned through nearly 20 years worth of retirement savings since I moved out. My parents were both forced to go back to work to try and stretch out their retirement savings. I decide to visit the psychologist myself, only to find out that she is one of those tell people what they want to hear so they keep giving me money, predatory type psychologists who was enabling my brother because he was a cash cow for her. Our entire family was furious. Turns out my brother had been recovered since his first year living away from home. He was perfectly able to work or study, he just didn't want to. And so she wrote him those bogus letters to let him get away with it. He decided to milk my parents of their savings to fund his lifestyle because he had earned it, and they owed him for not giving him what he wanted when he was younger. When confronted about it, he was entirely unapologetic. As far as he is concerned, he was entitled to everything he got and then some. It's been a few years since then, and my parents have completely cut him off. They are surviving, but within a few years, I will probably end up having to support them. I have no issue with this. I'm their son, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to do so, but it breaks my dad's heart knowing this. He grew up dirt poor and worked his butt off to provide for us, only to see it all disappear because of my selfish brother. The psychologist had her license suspended after my parents laid a complaint. I don't know if it was temporary or not, but I hope it was permanent. As for my brother, he works a dead-end retail job with a live-in boyfriend who pays for almost everything. He's still an entitled jerk, and I only see him during Christmas. I just want to emphasize, my brother had legitimate mental health issues, and I do not want to take away from that at all. He just chose to willfully deceive everyone about the severity in order to demand that everyone else give him the life he feels he deserves. And before you ask, no, his mental illness did not contribute towards this attitude. It's not that sort of illness. He's just an entitled jerk. Mother wants to use my art for free because she's my mother. Context. My mother is a narcissist, a boomer in every meaning of the word. I went to art school for a long time and have been trying to sell my work for a while. During my art school days, I went through a very successful phase of drawing watercolor animals that myself, my friends, and my teachers liked. They were a big hit, and I was very proud of each one I made. I made the mistake of showing a few to my mother, after she nearly forced her way into my sketchbooks that I kept very private at the time. Her first reaction to a few key pieces was,
"This would look so cute on baby clothes."
at the time, I just thought, oh, I guess so. I had no intention on selling them on shirts. At best, I thought they would make good stickers since they are the right size for them. Fast forward to last year. Happy 2020. And suddenly, my mother is still dead set on making my designs into baby shirts. This is something she was very ambitious about, but I wanted no part in. She forced me to scan a select few of my work. The consequences at the time were very mean, but I can't be asked to remember what they were, and then used them to her heart's content. A few days later, I had a therapy session, and I talked about this to my therapist. She and I had come up with a plan that basically said, if you want any more of my designs, pay me first. My mother had told me that if she sold the shirts, that I would get $0 of profit because I
"Didn't put work into the process.
and it was,
Ridiculous for me to ask for any money for a doodle."
as per my therapist's suggestion, I started seriously looking into commission contracts. I had to sit down with my mom about what my therapist and I talked about, and she blew me off completely. I told her, either you sign a commission contract if you want any more of my work or if you want me to make new designs, or else you go pay for someone else to make your designs. Her response was very typical narcissist boomer behavior.
"Well, you're my child, and I let you go to art school, so you owe me for that."
Very important note, my school is a charter, meaning you didn't have to pay to go there. But my parents insisted that they paid thousands for my tuition, even though there was none, and I knew that there was no tuition. All you had to do was get past the 10% acceptance rate, pay for transportation and a few classes, and you were good. Anyway, time goes on, and my mother tries to sell her baby shirts with absolutely no luck. No one wants them. She tells her coworkers about the shirts, but no one has a use for them since she works in a building that is literally only people who are over the hill and who have grandchildren that are too big for her very limited designs. She resorts to giving them for free at any and every baby shower that she can get her grubby hands on, and each reaction is not great. I honestly would be surprised if the unfortunate recipients still have those shirts. Then the time comes around for her to ask for more. She misplaced the folder full of my forced scans, or I may have taken it away, who knows. And she comes crawling to me wanting more.
"I don't know what happened to my folder, so I want your sketchbooks so I can scan more. Also, make more art for me,"
she told me. Will you pay me for my work? I asked.
"I already told you no. Now, give me them and make more."
Will you give me any of the profit you make off the shirts?
"No, I've given up on selling them. Now they're only going to be gifts."
I then held firm on our previous discussion of commission contracts, thanks therapist, and told her that I'm going to refuse to give her a single piece without payment. My pieces take a lot of time to make, and I'm already in school, so you're asking me to work this into my already busy schedule? I'm not moving on this. Her response, a hissy fit. She can't believe that her kid is asking to be paid for their work. So she resorts to the worst alternative.
"Fine then. I'll just get images off Google and sell those since you're being unfairly rude to me."
I try to tell her that is, in fact, illegal, but she won't listen. She's too hurt by her unfair child to listen to the law. To this day, she has not found a single baby shower to lug her stolen designs to and force upon the unlucky mother-to-be. She has completely given up on her goal to sell those, and our shirt press has a fine cake of dust on it now. She blames her failure on me and refuses to support any more of my art accomplishments because I was mean to her for not letting her steal my art. I don't feel bad at all. Next we've got, would you like some cheese with your wine? I am a federal government employee who had just finished a successful business trip. I was flying home and had a layover in a large international airport. I had a long layover and had gotten a bite to eat and had gotten no notifications about my gate being moved from one airport to the other. I and several other unlucky passengers had gone to the original gate and sat wondering where the plane was at as it was time to board. Finally, we find an employee who tells us the gate was changed and it's now boarding and set to take off in 8 minutes. We all take off sprinting for the correct gate. For the record, I am a 55-year-old woman who does actually run 10K races, so I wasn't doing too badly at this. I get to the correct gate and tried to pull up my boarding pass on my phone. It wouldn't work. I made a few more attempts to pull it up, but it didn't work. The gate clerk asked me to wait and she would print one up. I was the last to board the plane, but I made the flight. It should be smooth sailing from here. Boy, was I wrong. This was a small commuter jet with 2 seats on one side and 1 on the other. My seat was towards the rear of the plane on the single seat side. I walked down the aisle and encountered a rather rotund, angry man. His leg was sticking out in the aisle, and I didn't see it as I had my carry-on bag in front of me. I bumped his leg. Me. "Well, I'm so sorry. I didn't see your leg." Angry man.
You should be sorry. Watch where the heck you're going from now on.
Me. "I apologize again, but could you please move your leg so I can get to my seat?" He scowls at me, but moves his leg. I place my bag under the seat and buckle my belt. After about 15 minutes, we still have not left the gate. The passengers are starting to wonder why. The pilot comes on and tells us that there will be a delay as the plane still needs fuel and no fuel trucks were available at that time. It would be a 30-minute wait. Angry man.
What the heck? Is everyone here so darn stupid that they can't fuel a plane?
Flight attendant. "Sir, I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but..."
I don't give a hoot how sorry you are. This is outrageous.
He says something unintelligible. After 45 minutes, we finally get fuel. The plane should have departed an hour and a half ago. It's now almost 10 p.m. A few rows ahead of me was an apparently non-English speaking couple in front of me with their 3-year-old grandson with them. The boy was getting tired and frustrated. He started crying, but he was in his seat, so the plane left the gate. We had been away from the gate less than a minute and he decided to throw a tantrum. He undid his belt and jumped over the grandma and into the aisle and starts to run down the aisle. The attendant sees the lad and notifies the pilot. The plane stops on the tarmac. Grandma catches the kid and puts him back in his seat with his belt on, which he immediately undoes again and runs screaming up and down the aisle. Grandpa catches him this time and returns him to his seat and puts the belt back on him. He's still screaming and crying, but he's seated. We start moving again for about 2 more minutes when this kid's head pops up over his seat. The attendant calls the pilot again and the pilot stops. The angry man is saying many things that I cannot put in this narrative. Grandma gets him again and goes back to the seat, but puts him in her lap. The attendant tries to explain that this is not allowed, but she doesn't understand. Neither does Grandpa. The attendant asks if anyone can communicate with this couple. A few try, but they don't seem to understand. The pilot decides to remove this family from the plane, so back to the gate we go. We wait about 25 minutes for a representative from the airline to come and remove this family. The representative comes to remove the family, and all of a sudden, Grandpa gets up and yells,
What do you mean we have to get off this plane? I paid good money for this flight.
Obviously, no problem with English. The family was removed, and we finally got on our way. It's now 11:45, 15 minutes after the plane was originally stated to land, and it was a 3-hour flight. The attendant began the drink service for the flight after about 30 minutes. Once again, the angry man's leg was in the aisle. The poor frazzled attendant accidentally bumps his leg. Angry man.
What the heck is wrong with you? This whole dang trip has been a total pile of horse crap. I want your name and your manager's name, etc.
Attendant. My name is Attendant, and you can call this number in the morning, but I still need to finish the drink service in the back. Could you please move your leg so I can get by? Angry man moves his leg but keeps grumbling. He stands up in the aisle.
I'm not finished talking to you yet.
Starts to move down the aisle. Me. I jump into the aisle. I'm tired of this obnoxious fool. Hey, what do you think you're doing?
Who the heck are you?
The person sitting behind you. I just wanted to let you know that you missed a perfect opportunity back there.
What do you mean?
You should have asked the attendant for some cheese.
Cheese? Why would I want that?
To go with the wine you've been having since you got on this plane. Everyone within earshot is now laughing hysterically. Angry man, his face turning red with anger.
I want to know your name. I want to report you to the airlines.
Me, in a voice just above a whisper. Sir, I work for the federal government. You really don't want to know my name, but I would love to know yours. I smile very nicely. The angry man's face loses all color, and he scurries back to his seat and sits down quietly. He politely addressed the attendant as ma'am for the rest of the flight. After we landed and we were getting off of the plane, the attendant thanked me for what I did, but wanted to know what I told him. I winked at her and told her to have a better day tomorrow. Next we've got Entitled Mother Tries to Steal Meat and Candy from Store. So, some backstory for this. I am currently working in a large grocery store chain. I am not that old, 16, and usually just sit as a cashier because I am so young at my job. I work a lot because I have a lot of free time, so I experience more absurd things than my fellow young workers, which only work in the weekends. This grocery store in particular in my city is also known for theft, so a lot of people steal from it, so we have locks for a lot of things in there to keep them away. I was sitting as the cashier and had been for the last 2 hours, and I hear the entrance alarm go off, which it does pretty often due to it being a little defective, and we were waiting for a repairman, and it is a mother and her little kid. Let's call them Karen and Entitled Daughter. Entitled Daughter puts her hands on her ears to cover the noise out, and my manager rushes over to turn them off and calm them down, explaining why it happened. My manager told us over a communication headset we all have on that they were pretty angry and that we had traumatized her little kid, and my manager just apologized and kept on going with his day. Another alarm goes off, and this time it's a different one. It's the expensive meat alarm, which goes off when someone tries to open the container where all our expensive meat is stored. I was close by, and I walked over to see Karen and Entitled Kid again. I smiled on my way over just to be polite, and I asked Karen what the problem was since she looked angry. Karen.
This is the second time you guys have traumatized my little baby over stupid things. And I just wanted some ribeye steak and get on with my day.
I said back that she needs to call an employer to open it, or else an alarm will go off again while trying to calm them down. I opened the container, and they took a lot longer than expected to pick their meat, and I said to them, since I had to get back to my duties, I really need to get back to my duties, so if you would hurry up, I would appreciate it a lot. Then she replied with a look that kind of said,
Mind your own business,
and kind of scared me. After 7 minutes or so, she then says,
Never mind, I don't want it anyways.
And then, just when I'm about to close the container again, she quickly grabs the ribeye and tries to hide it in her purse. I say to her, Ma'am, you need to put that back unless you want it.
What are you talking about?
I saw you taking a ribeye steak when I was closing the container.
Are you accusing me of stealing?
No, not as of right now because you haven't stolen anything yet.
Just leave me!
She yells that, by the way. I tell my manager about this, and he says that if any more problems come up with them, just let him know. So I go back to the cashier post and start beeping items through and getting more and more customers. All is actually going quite fine until I see Karen and Entitled Daughter step up. They've put their items on the conveyor and get up to the checkout, and I start beeping their items out, and I don't see that ribeye steak they took. I ask Karen nicely if I can have a look in her bag, as I have a right to do that if I think she is stealing, and this is how that goes. Me. I unfortunately have a suspicion that you are stealing, so I would like it if I could please have a look in your bag.
I am not stealing. We have been over this. I didn't take any ribeye steak,
she says in complete denial. Ma'am, either you let me have a look in your bag, or I will have to call my manager and have you stay put here in the store until we have all this sorted out.
Fine! Call your manager so he can see how stupid you are.
I then call my manager and he comes straight down and starts talking with Karen as I stand right next to him because I need to be involved. Manager: Ma'am, as a manager in this store, I have a right to get a look in your bag if one of my coworkers thinks you are stealing. Karen, shouting:
You have absolutely no right to do this. And the fact you even have the audacity to speak to me like that, after you've traumatized my poor baby twice with your stupid alarms, that is so cruel.
I then notice that entitled daughter has sneaked behind me and walked over to the candy by the checkout and eaten some. I walk over and kneel down and say that she needs to go over to her mother and that her mother needs to pay for the candy she had eaten. Without me knowing, Karen had rushed over to me and in an instant grabbed my shoulder and pulled me back from entitled daughter. Entitled daughter then starts crying so loud that my ears begin to ring. Meanwhile, all that happened and Karen shouting right in my face, my manager called the police and they had arrived. One of the two policemen who arrived rushed over to Karen, holding her back from me as they could clearly see she was threatening me, and the other started calming entitled daughter down. My manager explained it all and showed them the footage, and Karen got arrested. I don't know her sentence though.
Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.